Good afternoon from Riga. We have round 6 of Riga Technical University Open 2024. The round is already underway. Players already are in full fighting mode, and we are also gonna join the action very very soon. So with you,
I
as
thought
before.
you would say that we are also in a fighting mode.
A little bit we are. Yes, we are ready to sacrifice some of the players' pieces. Luckily, they are not our own. And yeah, with you once again is Anna Kantane.
Welcome everyone, welcome. And of course, Grandmaster Toms Kantāns, one of the leading Latvian Grandmasters who is not playing in the tournament. He decided to commentate it for you, so you gotta appreciate it. Yes, round 6 has already started. Actually, today it's very interesting day in the festival. This is a whole festival. We are focusing on the Group A, but in the festival we have a lot of different tournaments. We had Blitz and Rapid. We also had a match on 100 boards between all the Baltic countries and a FIDE team. It was actually quite a unique event, celebrating 100 years of FIDE, but also federations here. And today another tournament is starting under 2400. So you will see the playing hall will be a little bit filling up. Maybe we'll see a view of the camera. The round for this tournament is going to start in like 1.5 hours. So yeah, you see those empty boards that are closer to us. They are actually waiting for new players that arrive, which is a really cool thing in this festival, because not everyone can sacrifice 1 week of their life just to play chess. But from Thursday evening till Sunday, it is much more doable. And also another tournament is starting tomorrow in the evening for still a little bit less experienced players with lower ratings, so everyone can find something here. Actually, one of my students is going to join tomorrow also in the playing hall, so yeah, a lot of different things for people who have different possibilities. Yeah, we see here the players. This is Tournament A. Tournament B is also playing alongside Tournament A. But yeah, we are gonna focus on the commentary of the games from the top tournament. So let's see the standings and the pairings that are going to what is waiting for us today. Yeah, this is standings after the 5th round. We have 5 leaders with 4.5 points, all sharing the first place.
Yeah, so nobody's anymore on a perfect score, and that also is a good indicator of how strong is the event. Nobody can just run over the competition. You have to fight it out, and most likely there will be no clear winner till the very, very last round, and possibly till the end of very last round. Last games might be deciding who is gonna win, but of course now we are slowly building up the suspense, the standings. It will be already much more clear with every round who is no longer able to take the first spot. At the moment, probably it's fair to assume that we have a tournament winner in the group, either with 4.5 points or with 4 points from 5 right now.
Yeah, and what I really would like to point out, look at this group with 4 people. It is not ending. We could scroll more. As you see, 27th place is the last one we see here on the screen, but there are more players. So yeah, it's still wide open. We have also young players, which is great to see. One of the players who is sharing the first place, Kandurak, is under 16. As you see, we have a couple of players under 20, under 18 here in the top, quite a lot of junior players. So yeah, this makes it also more fun because they are often underrated or at least able to perform much better in a single game. So that makes just more exciting for us and creates more upsets possible as well. So maybe let's see the pairings.
Yes, you can see the pairings, and also I just, in the meantime, also want to point out, as we before saw, everybody usually loves a good underdog story, and the hero from the first rounds, Chen Hongsan, who is seeded only 148 in the event. He has started with 3 out of 3, then he lost a very unfortunate game in round 4, but he did come back with a victory against international roster in round 5, and he is among the people with 4 points and had one of the best tie breaks, so he was ranked like in the 6th position, and also is a big contender for the very top places in the tournament, and is gaining at this point after 5 rounds incredible almost 130 rating points.
Yeah, now we see him playing on board 15, so he's in this group even though he has the best tiebreak. So in the standings he was the highest, in the pairings he's the lowest, and he is gonna play with Paulius Pultinevicius, who has 3.5 points. Yeah, they needed to play like this with different amount of points to make the pairings. Pairings are always made according to the rating, so that's why you see that a very first person with 4 points is Grandmaster Kacper Piorun. He has the highest rating in this group. That's why he is also on the highest board. So yeah, the top seed of the tournament is back on his first board, probably feeling quite happy about it. So this is very important game, and he's playing with the youngest out of the leaders, with Kandurak under 16. And then we have Joseph Girel against Jakob Payeken. Both these players perform for now much above their ratings. Also, their games seem to be really good quality, so this can be an interesting matchup unless they are feeling peacefully today, since this is the second round of today. And then Krishna Rokit, the last person with 4.5 points. Yeah, he has a tough pairing playing against Kacper Piorun. Kacper Piorun won today very quickly in the morning with a beautiful attacking game, so he is also for sure in a fighting spirit, ready for another game.
And on board 5 we have, with black pieces, playing Kazakowski Valery, whose game we followed closely in round 1, where he lost against the already before mentioned Chen Hongsen, and they played a very long game, and now he's on a winning streak. He has won 4 games in a row, and usually when player starts to win that many games in a row, he gets extra dangerous. There's kind of sometimes develops this feeling that you just can't lose, like yeah, you're invincible, and when you start winning 4, 5, 6 games in a row, you can also go on to win the whole event.
I have never had this feeling.
We had one of the years this kind of situation. I don't recall if it was first round loss or the second round loss, but Igor Kovalenko, who was at the time representing Latvia, he lost in the very early rounds, and then he went on to win, I think, 7 games in a row and won the event.
Nice. Yeah, let's see. Valery Kazakowski is a very dangerous player, so for sure, despite the loss, it's also good to see those dangerous players that they managed to climb back. And yeah, this can be an interesting game. What else? I think board 15, where we have Hongsen Chen, we should follow it as well. And also, I'm happy to see that Eileen Roberts is on board, on the live board. So on the 17th board, you can see we have one of our top ladies. She is one of the young talents and one of the best in the world. So I will for sure want to follow this game as well.
And we can probably already jump in the action.
Yeah, let's see board number 1. Let's see how are the players doing. We have already a game quite advanced.
And once again we have a situation with an isolated pawn for black, player with black pieces, the same way like we saw in the previous round on board 1. Yet in this case the situation is very, very different, since it's not an endgame. We have all the pieces on the board, exactly the same pawn structure, but all the pieces on the board, so that changes very, very much. And how do you assess white's chances here, Anna?
Well, yeah, so black has an isolated pawn. Usually in those isolated pawn structures, the person who has an isolated pawn, they have the only pawn that is in the center. If you focus on the 4 central squares, only the isolated pawn is there. So they are playing for control of the center, for control of some important squares like e4 square. That also can give... usually thanks to the control of the center, you have control of the board. You can have especially attack against the king. Here I am wondering whether attack on the king is really possible. This knight on f4 is kind of tricky, and knight on f3 as well. So white seems to be set up quite nicely with those bishops, bishop on b1, bishop on b2, and I'm wondering if could maybe white have some chances against the king. Usually the side playing against isolated pawn wants to just play more strategically, just block it or attack it. But here maybe those bishops could also do some damage with some queen d3, queen battery, possibly coming in. I actually kind of like white here, I think. What would you say?
Yeah, the white's position seems to be very, very pleasant here. There is both the strategical edge thanks to the bad bishop in connection with an isolated pawn, and also an attack. So it feels like nothing good is going on for black at the moment in this position, and especially
That's a very strong assessment. Is it so bad?
I don't know if it's so bad, but maybe it's okay. But I would say that there's nothing good about the position, which it doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad, but it's like it should be quite unpleasant to play it because, and we also see that on the time, every move is taking a lot of time from the player with black pieces, and that is a natural consequence of unpleasant positions. Because when you look at the board and everything seems not nice, then it is, how do you make this choice? How do you make a move? And you want to find something that at least in some way appeals with your playing style, but you look, there is not cool, there is not cool, and then you're like trying to find something and you're spending more and more time until you settle on the move.
What is... Why was the hand flying there? Reaching for... I thought he's trying to press the clock, but I guess he was just playing around. Yeah, maybe this is what you were just mentioning, just trying to figure out this position. Not exactly a pleasant choice. The problem is that the pawn on d5 is blocked. Even though there is no piece directly in front of it, it would like to maybe sometimes come forward. One of the typical plans when you have an isolated pawn is just going forward, trying to exchange it. Now it could be very tempting to do, since pawn from e3 can't really capture on d4 because the knight is hanging on f4, but there are enough pieces defending the square knight and the bishop and the queen, so that is also not possible for black to do. And it's hard to imagine what would he choose. Maybe knight e4 is one way of playing, but then you have to even be ready for some exchanges. Knight h5 is an option as well, to put immediate pressure on the g7 pawn, which is hanging because this bishop from b2 is extremely well located.
Yeah, this is it's tough, and even when you're facing the move like knight h5, just the simple decision whether we play g6 or f6 alone is worth, I think, already 10-15 minutes, because it is just so tough to choose which one to play, because the wrong push could have a really devastating effect. The weaknesses could just develop too big to handle, and that is the trouble also one of like little bit worse positions, that every next mistake can be very costly, while if your position is okay, a mistake can make your position unpleasant, but it still won't be losing.
Yeah, that's certainly a big factor, and yeah, we have to remember that every pawn move is a big decision. You can never take it back, and once the pawn moves forward, some squares will be weakened, and especially around the king, it is it's just such a big decision. So Khan has to be really careful here. Maybe he's already in trouble, but maybe not yet there. So he has to make sure that he is not weakening this position. Also, he has to be careful about the clock. 24 minutes already, less than his opponent. So seems like a very satisfactory position, I think, for the top seed here out of the opening.
Yeah, certainly. And actually what I just noticed is there is a very direct threat. At the moment, you have to take into account that white could consider taking on f6, forcing queen f6, and taking the pawn on d5. It's not given that they want to take the pawn, but it is a possibility. And again, if you are thinking about giving up the pawn, that's once again not an easy decision at all.
just to steal the pawn, I thought I am more focusing all the time on queen d3, having some checkmates. But sometimes it's so easy that you just take the knight. Knight is a very important defender of the d5 pawn, and queen has to capture because black doesn't want to take with the pawn from g7. That just creates a shattered position, and you want to avoid it at all costs. You prefer to give a pawn up, but you have to be sure, especially playing against Nicolas Teodoro, that you can give the pawn, because if he takes it and there is not enough compensation, then he's just going to realize the advantage.
Yeah, so a lot of work ahead for Khan here, and we'll see how he manages, if he manages to solve all the problems. And while he does that, we can probably move on to
board 2.
Yeah, to the board 2. He actually just played knight e4, so one of the moves that we expected. But yeah, anyways, we can be moving on to the board 2, and we'll return to this game after a while.
Yeah, so on board 2 we have Joseph Kirel and Jakob Payekan, both IMs, both performing, as we mentioned when we were summing up the standings and pairings, that they are doing really great here in Riga for now. They have caused some upsets as well, and now they are facing each other. I think, okay, we will see in a second. Yes, this is the game. So let's... we see that they are well prepared for the afternoon round. There's banana, water. You need something to help you to keep sharp during the chess game for 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours. Some games here in the tournament were going for almost 6 hours as well. It is a classical tournament. The time control is 90 minutes. Plus 30 seconds. After each move they get 30 seconds. There is nothing afterwards. Often in tournaments you see additional half an hour. After move 40 there isn't additional time here. So time is very important. But still those games, some of them managed to go on for so many hours. We had very, very long battles here, so yeah, especially today in a double round, players can play for 7, 8 or even more hours.
Yeah, it's a long day whenever you have a double round in a classical tournament, so being prepared, that is a very, very good idea. And yeah, so both the players, like Anna mentioned, have been playing very, very good, and especially I was very impressed by the decisions that Joseph was making in the previous 2 rounds when we were following his games more closely. Very, very strong strategical decisions, both in defense and both in attack. So definitely now he's looking for a point somewhere against Jacob here, because he is, for a change now, the favorite, at least in the paper. And also he's playing with white pieces. And what do you think about the position?
Yeah, so we can see that the structure is very symmetrical. Pawns on the king side are exactly mirrored, but one difference that we have is that pawn on a5 for white is a little bit more advanced than this a pawn for black. And I think if they were actually moved and they were symmetrical, then maybe it would have been equal. But here it could be something that white is playing for. Pawn on a6 could be a target. Pawn on a5 is giving us some slight space advantage, controlling the b6 square. So maybe he has some slight edge here. Doesn't feel like it's much. Black's pieces are also more or less well located, but I'm wondering about this rook on a8 and knight on b8, whether it's an issue or not. Other than that, it seems to be fine, but this is the biggest factor. a6 pawn, knight on b8 and rook on a8, plus the fact that this a pawn for white is well located and giving some unpleasant possibilities. I guess white is pushing a little bit.
Yeah, it would sure seem so. I think also Queen c2 was aimed strictly with the sole idea not to allow knight coming to c6, to keep the knight on b8 and keep the rook on a8. But Yeah, and it does seem like we cannot get the knight out, but we still have a possibility to develop our rook. If we do really want to get it out, we can play rook a7 right now, with the next move coming rook b7 or rook c7, and at least to develop one of those pieces, and then we are staying only with one undeveloped piece. And knight on b8, we could argue that it's also standing good because it does defend the a6 pawn, and maybe we don't exactly need to move it just yet.
Yeah, that's true. The position, because of the structure mainly, I guess it has very big potential to be equal, but I guess it's still black that has to solve some slight issues. We had a similar case today in the morning. I think it was Joseph with black pieces that needed to prove that it's all fine. Yeah, Joseph Girel with black pieces. There was also like pretty equal, but white had an active bishop that was creating some pressure. Now he has this active bishop, let's say on e2, which is creating a pressure on the weak pawn on a6, but maybe it is not enough. It's always this question whether it's enough. Actually, I now only look at the evil bar and it says that it's equal, but even slightly darker, so I guess the issues are not really there.
And the thing with advanced pawns is that if your opponent starts attacking them, it's much harder to defend them when they are advanced. So it maybe is a case that the pawn on a5 is potential target also to look at from the black side, and that we just need to finish development and then we're going to start attacking, and white is going to be the one struggling to defend it further.
Yeah, it's really interesting because both of those players played really well here, and despite the fact that Jacob Payekan is lower rated here, I think he showed that he's really resourceful here, and he might really not be worried about this position. The time is very similar. Both players have 65 minutes on the clock. So yeah, very interesting how it's going to develop. It could be the case also that they will be more or less peacefully playing this position. But let's see, he's making a move, not rook a7, queen b7.
Queen b7, that is an interesting move.
So that puts some pressure on the e4 square, additional. Queen and this bishop on d5 are working together along this diagonal. And I guess that simply frees a square for the knight on d7. Rook could come to c8 afterwards. Queen also is defending this a6 pawn that we were mentioning. It's targeted. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And I think we also do take a look at the bishop on b2. Even if it's not that dangerous immediately, we have some extra options of bishop e4 and asking the queen to move maybe to less comfortable square because it needs to be protecting the bishop on b2. So yes, I think that the assumption, like evaluation that the position is rather equal, is very, very fair. And both players have their own ideas. And yeah, the one who will play this game better will simply come out on top.
That could be a pretty logical outcome. Indeed.
Well, sometimes it is that your position is just bad, and even if you play good, you can only hope for a draw, or you can only, try to. You need opponent's help to actually get something. But here, I think both players have simply equal chances to outplay the opponent.
Yeah, it could be. So let's jump to the next board. Let's see board number 3. Let's see how has the opening developed there. This is our remaining board with one of the leaders. So let's take a look. And in the meantime, also welcome to all the viewers wherever you're watching, whether from the main website of the tournament, rtuopen.com, or maybe you're on our Twitch channels or on YouTube channels. Really nice to see you. If you have any questions, you can let us know. We'll try to do our best to address them as well. And either way, yeah, thanks for watching the tournament.
Yeah. Thank you everybody watching, and hello. Yeah, and so board 3. We have Krishna Rohit with 4.5 points, playing with white pieces against Kasper Puron, who has half point less, and he wants a win. He is definitely looking for a win here. I mean, I don't know his playing style that well, but I think he is the kind of player who doesn't like draws. Is that correct, Anna? He wants to go fighting chess, especially in an open tournaments in every game, just to look for some ideas.
Yeah, I think so. I don't expect Kacper to want to draw in any game if he doesn't need to. He's a big fighter. And yeah, I think he came here to win simply. I would expect so.
And now as well, his opening choice is very, very slow aggressive. I think that would be my description of it. So choosing to play Dutch defense and without going into any very forced lines, but just setting up some sort of imbalanced pawn structure. As we see, all the pawns are on the board. He also went and gave up his bishop for the knight, doubling opponent's pawns, staying in the situation where opponent has a bishop pair, more diagonals to control, yet he has a possibility maybe to be more tricky, maybe sometimes to create weak pawn on c4 because those are doubled pawns, and just looking to strategically outplay his opponent.
Yeah, this is as a structure, it's quite typical. This rook b8 move, I am not so sure about. I don't want to criticize the 2600 player, not too much at least, but I don't really know whether he needed to play it. Usually in those types of positions, I guess he's preparing knight a5 and b6, and this is maybe his idea. So that rook on a8 wouldn't be attacked from the bishop on g2.
There's this classical idea how a lot of kids often lose their games whenever somebody plays against them bishop b4, doubles the pawns, and then exactly what happens is opponent plays somewhere knight a5, blocks the pawn with c5, b6, and the c4 pawn is as good as dead and never gets to in the game. I don't think this idea can work out against a player almost 2500 rating, but it has to be kept in mind that it's there, and you never probably want to take here as well, because that is the last and main defender of your king. So if you give up your light square bishop, then there is nothing good probably going on for white, just a bad bishop stuck behind the pawns on the dark squares. So that should not be an option, and white do need to look for some active continuations, either to break open the center, or simply to take control of the center, but just something active that bishops would be becoming more dangerous. How to do that, though, I am not sure. Do you have some ideas?
Yeah, in those structures, bishop, the dark square bishop of white is usually this big pain, because the c3 pawn is limiting it heavily, the d4 pawn is there. Sometimes white is trying to push d5 or c5, sometimes even with some sacrificing of the pawn, but just to open diagonals and files. Here it doesn't feel like it exactly works on this d5, but it's a very big decision, because you could end up in a position where your pawns are even more blocked, and that is only going to create more strategical trouble for yourself. So d5 is probably somehow feel like it's not working. Maybe we should prepare it with queen a4, putting pressure on the knight and on the a7 pawn. Maybe now d5 is some option in some cases. Bishop d7, that creates some scary possibilities of the knight jumping to d4, I guess. Maybe now d5.
Oh, okay.
As you said at the beginning, we can sacrifice not our pieces, or we can try to see if those tactics work. Knight e5 now, attacking the queen and the c4 pawn, and can white be tricky and take on the a7?
Oh, wow.
It's a pawn.
I think I'm gonna go also for an pawn here on c4.
And now if we take on e6, and this bishop is so silly on d2, but okay, maybe we can still play rook from f to d1, prepare, maybe not, but...
Yeah, but these kind of ideas, exactly, you have to think about, because regardless of evolution here, the game opens up and the bishops have some potential, and then some good things can be happening, but perhaps something else, because it feels slightly unnatural for me at least that the bishop we have to defend with a rook, so that that would mean that we are not ready for any big activity as of yet. But this is certainly, yeah, one of the ideas exactly that could be somewhere executed from the white side, some d5 break with queen e4, without queen e4, yeah, or queen e4 and then another move and then d5. So certainly this is in the mind of the player with white pieces here, and the most principled break that came to my mind just in the center could be maybe to play e4.
Yeah, so e4, that actually makes a lot of sense, and now we are also potentially putting some pressure on the king side, especially let's say black takes this pawn, then bishop can capture back, and we attack the h7 pawn, and already that looks much better for white. And yeah, now white is thinking, actually it makes sense, especially from the perspective of that rook b8 has just been played, and maybe it's a good move, but it also gives us time to strike in the center and play a little bit more dynamic. This is what you want when you have a bishop pair. You want to play dynamic, you want to open it up, and the rook on b8 is still a bit passive, bishop on c8 is still a bit passive, so why not to actually do it so quickly? Yeah, he could be thinking about it.
Probably we do not want to take on e4, of course we are not forced to do that, and e5 could be the most logical reply, so that if white does decide to take on f5, we can join the game with bishop with a tempo very, very quickly. So, and also we are attacking at the moment on d4, and probably we do not want to play d5 in this very instance, as that would really, really weaken our c4 pawn, and this scenario could happen that how kids tend to lose the c4 pawn, it just being completely blocked off and undefendable.
Unless after c5 there are still some very concrete variations that white has c5. It's a sacrifice of the pawn. If black takes it, then there is some c4 move, which I think favors white. b6 has to be played, but then we maybe don't even, we can even consider taking this knight, but we can also go maybe for some f4 ideas, just break some stuff open, and in the future if our bishop goes to c3, we could have some serious pressure against the king and the g7 pawn.
Yeah, that is looking very, very nice, and the knight on a5 is not a beautiful piece at all, and especially just a funny visually pawn structure that would develop in case at some point white takes. There are doubled pawns, double isolated double pawns, and they are not great at all, and especially still white can go on and to make absolutely horrible pawn structure here for black. So
yeah, that's actually really funny, and okay, it's a pawn sacrifice, so it's always tricky to evaluate, especially long term, because nothing immediately is happening. But with the bishop pair, this is what you have to do. Otherwise, yeah, black's main idea here, by giving the bishop on c3, doubling the pawns, black is trying to play very strategically against the pawns, since black doesn't have a dark square bishop. Putting the pawns on the dark squares, like this e5 move especially, makes a lot of sense, and just playing very, very positionally. So from the other side, when we play against it, we gotta play dynamically, we gotta be ready also even for sacrifices, and just to open those bishops up, they need to have diagonals and activity.
yeah, and probably in this moment, if this is to happen, black wouldn't take the pawn, but would play something like knight c4, just getting the knight on a better square and keeping the position somewhat closed, exactly knowing that the bishops shouldn't be opened up, that they don't need to have, that we don't want to give them open diagonals, and I would be kind of satisfied here with black pieces if this was to happen, because we did manage to block the center at least somewhat, and the center is very, very crucial part of the game when we speak about potential for the bishops, especially the bishop from g2. Now we already know that it's not going to be too dangerous of a piece here anymore at all, so that would be some sort of an achievement here for black already, and so that's why e4 of course is the move that has to be considered, but yeah, you have to know what to do against e5 move, which is not an easy question at all. Perhaps we play c5 now immediately or something like this. Just
Wow, that is blowing everything open. But yeah, I mean, this is what they have to be taking under consideration and evaluating. It's so good to be in the commentator's place when you can shuffle the pieces around back and forth, and for them the trick is that they need to calculate it all in the head, and then the move that they will decide to play on the board will be there, and the consequences of it together with it.
Yeah, that's the kind of approach that I always like to say when it comes to also preparation for the games and so on. You don't really need to prepare a lot of lines. You only need to prepare one line, the one that will be played in a game, and you also need to remember only the one line. So it's actually, but it also goes in, yeah, also for these kind of positions and so on, that you can't take it back. You just, the one line that you will choose to play, that's it. That's it for this round, and sometimes it can just decide the outcome of the whole tournament, especially in this late rounds of the event. Already round 6 is very, very significant, especially if you are in the group with half a point behind leaders. If you do lose a game, you probably have no chances anymore to win the tournament. If you make a draw, okay, there are still chances if you go on a winning streak, but if you do lose, then probably that is it.
Yeah, that is true. Very, very big moment. Probably also in this game now, how to proceed. Already quite a big time difference also for black, 20 minutes, but it's still not that dramatic. But always you have to be careful when you have. It's not only about how much time you have on the clock, it's very important how much time do you have compared to your opponent. So yeah, here Krishna Rohit has to make a decision quite soon how to solve this position, how to activate the bishop pair, how to open it up in his favor, because oftentimes we see especially less experienced players, they just want to open the position up. It makes a lot of sense, but sometimes we see opening up the position where exactly it favors opponent. So you always need to be super careful that you actually open your files or your diagonals, that your pieces would feel more happy about whatever is coming and not your opponent's pieces. So yeah, big decisions now.
Wow. I see that Anna is also speechless. This
He took on c6. You mentioned that you never want to take this knight, I guess, but maybe he was not sure of all those possible outcomes, and he takes the knight, giving up. Tom's mentioned before, that's the only piece that defends the king as well. It's a huge decision. And look at Kacper Piorun. He is... He's somehow, I think, also surprised. But yeah, quick capture and rook b1, of course, that was prepared. He took on c6 with a clear idea. Maybe he's going to try to target the c6 pawn and a7 pawn, and he's gonna claim that, look, buddy, you wanted to attack my doubled pawns, now you have doubled pawns as well, and I will be the first one to target them.
I actually have a feeling that he is having a very big respect for his opponent, and he does not feel like playing a dynamic, complicated position against him, and he wants to have something calmer, something more easy to navigate, something more strategical, and that's why he is going for more simplified position where we don't have a bishop against the knight, where we each have a bishops. Of course, those are different colored bishops, so it's still rather dynamic, but there is also a lot of drawing potential automatically, especially if we start exchanging rooks in this position. So I think that is more of the approach, because if you are looking to play the game aggressively, you do have already a bishop pair. So this is like as good as it gets from the opening, and you have a position that is potentially blowing up, potentially opening up. So you're looking for all those crazy pawn breaks, and you play rather those than this type of position. So yeah, and I think that this is an attempt to play it more safe, and let's see how he does. Very often that backfires for players. Whenever they start to make decisions based on playing with an idea to play it safe, uh, some maybe not that great decisions tend to happen in moments later. So yeah, let's see how he navigates that from this point on. And now also Kasper has to decide what does he do with the b file. Does he play somewhere bishop a6 and then exchange the rooks and play queen c8 and use the pressure against those pawns on the light squares? Does he try to play somewhere rook b6, which is a very nice square for the rook, of course, because white probably never want to take here, as that would completely fix the black's pawn structure with AB. But after rook b6 we have to take into account moves like c5, which could force our hand once again, and maybe weaken some pawns on the dark squares where the bishop could start attacking them. So now it's time to think, and I think that Kasper is gonna take quite a while to make a decision. At this point, he probably was not entirely ready for bishop takes c6, and he just needs to set up a plan for pieces like for the rest of the game almost.
Yeah, after such a big decision like bishop takes on c6, the whole character of the position changes, and most of the ideas that you might have been considering, which were connected with the fact that black has a knight, that black wants to put the pawns on the dark squares, that white also has a strong light square bishop, so white wants to open the position. Now they are all gone, and you have to start coming up with ideas a little bit from zero, not exactly, but from way different perspective. So yeah, this is also time, like very, very critical moment. Every exchange, but especially such a significant exchange like this, it's a good moment to just think and not rush. So yeah, let's take a look at some other board. Maybe we can take a look at board number 8. We have a very unusual position there. Those are always fun to follow, just to show you how rich the game is here, despite the fact that we have such strong players. But yeah, we have very creative participants here as well. So I think board 8 is quite promising and unusual position. So let's see if you agree, Toms.
Oh wow, that is
Hard. It puts you in a hard situation, right? Do you agree with me?
I agree that that is an unusual position. Yeah, that is what I need to agree with. But what to say about the position? That is not easy at all to really figure it out. But yeah, the player who is playing on board 8 with white pieces, Pa Inian, he is once over and over again just delivering some exciting stuff. I think what he's really doing in every of those games, all of those rounds, he's trying to provoke his opponents. He is not afraid to have some slightly maybe technically worse positions, but he is trying to provoke his opponents into like very, very sharp game, and where he doesn't care what's the evaluation like. He just cares about attacking possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. He just is looking for fun. He came to Riga to just have fun, and he's creating it on the board.
And I think in this game we can also look all the way through just from the beginning, just to show, because there was some exciting stuff already happening just from straight out of the opening. So opening started rather casually, and here a4, bishop f5 was played, and now a somewhat aggressive line with f3. So trying to take the center and take the pawn back on c4 with all the comfort. Bishop b4, and now king f2. This is something, wow. King f2 in this position, not simply playing e4, which probably is just very, very theoretical line, But king f2. Uh, King f2, and so his idea is just to get away from the pin here, and then what? Then just to play e4, I guess. Might be that in the classical lines with e4 there are some sacrifices on e4, giving up a lot of pawns, having an attack on the king, and it's all overly analyzed. So he's trying to make it more fun. And look at that, his opponent with almost no thinking at all, facing a move which is maybe a novelty, maybe no, hard to say, immediately just plays bishop c2, just spent 1 minute. We don't even know if he wasn't simply walking around and that he came to the board and played it immediately. Maybe player with white pieces has already tried this before and he just noticed it. So yeah, bishop c2, the idea is that we cannot take because then queen d4 will come, attacking the king and the knight, so black would win another pawn, so queen d2 was played, and bishop b3, just going back to defend the pawn on c4, but that comes with the price of bishop not being able to do anything else in the game except defend the pawn there.
Yeah, it is defending the pawn, and c4 pawn could be very important, but it is a bit stuck, and sometimes we see that such pieces can have a very difficult time to come back.
No, but I don't think it is. I just wanted to look at the time. He spent almost 15 minutes on this decision, king f2. So this is just decided by the board. An opponent instantly blitzes out an answer. And also queen d2 was spent another 10 minutes. And now we go another almost 15 minutes on move e4. So it is improvising.
Yeah, and but we haven't seen Ataberg Eren before. I think this is the very first game of him that we are watching. Either he is playing very quickly, or somehow, somehow he has had it himself, maybe against a different opponent, and somehow, you have sometimes luck that you prepare a line against someone. It doesn't happen in this game, but 1 month later you play in a tournament, and it happens, and then you can use it. For me, whenever it happens, I don't remember what I prepared the previous month. I just know I have prepared it, and I'm frustrated that I don't remember. But for those guys, usually they do remember, so they can use the prep that they prepared against a completely different game. So maybe this is what happened. Still, his time management is very impressive in such an unusual position. b5 still played really quickly, yeah?
Very, very quickly. So this was all basically blitzed out, and white is just taking his time, and now I guess his first time thought for some like 4 minutes, and as we see by evaluation bar, from close to winning position it instantly drops to zeros.
Oh wow. Because he could have taken on d4, but probably he didn't like it because bishop e3 is coming, and also doesn't seem to be a good move because white is just getting a piece with a tempo.
I think just a simple move like castle could be great here. We do have all the attacking ideas and we don't give up our bishop, because sometimes I think it would be more useful to have a dark square bishop here that can return back. I think it's also nice that we are still attacking on d4 and white do need to spend time defending it. And yeah, and another defensive piece, because once we exchange the bishop, we don't have anything with what to fight on the dark square, so this is some sort of compensation automatically for player from the white side. But his reasoning is also, I think, simply that he will take on c3 and he's gonna have a passed pawn on the a file. So that guarantees him almost a winning endgame. So he's just looking to secure it.
So he just needs to exchange the queens now, a very clear goal. So let's see what happened next, because we had some 2 more moves, I guess, now after queen g3, knight d7, h4. You see that, player with white pieces, he is a very adventurous chess player. h4. Not a first move you probably consider. I mean, bishop on c1, bishop on f1, they still haven't moved. But there you have it, h4. He's just trying to push, I guess, h5, h6, and ask some questions to the opponent.
This is actually one of the first moves I think I would be considering in this position right now, as we have set up everything with an idea that we do want to attack and we need some reinforcements, and h-pawn in connection with the rook joining in the game could be a very, very big reinforcement in this position, particularly, I think.
And now the idea is that if black goes h5, I guess white is having bishop h6 ideas, and then g6 is not possible really without the pawn on h7. Also this. I thought simply knight g6 is going to take, but yeah, also rook is hanging. So knight e8 could come. Now there's some. Oh no, I thought knight c6, some ideas, knight c6, knight e7, but I guess...
That is an interesting idea.
Although still it works.
Queen b6, the only square for the queen, because knight e7 would be a fork. Anyways, you can put knight on e7, forcing the king to
But what
away.
next? I don't
And then
see
just
a problem.
retreating with the bishop somewhere. And then maybe queen g5, provoking g6 somewhere. We have a very interesting knight on c6 over here.
On e7.
In e7, yeah.
But again, this is such an unusual position. Every piece is just very, very strangely looking. Knight on e7 especially, but that's what makes this position so cool to follow. So h4 has been played. 34 minutes on the clock. This is quite tight, but we've seen this player already in some time trouble, and he doesn't shy away from complex positions, no matter what his time management and time on the clock is. And now...
Probably the idea, in general, just to show why h pawn is being moved at all, is in case... I think it would be to follow through with h5. And in case something like this is to happen, we want to just go bishop h6, and now if knight goes back to e8, we are already ready to take on g7, and now the h-pawn very nicely joins the game, using the fact that we are taking back the piece, and in some lines like this, we simply open the file, and rook is also ready to join the game. Perhaps we didn't need to take it immediately, because now we have to waste the tempo on some queen exchanges
There
or
was
something.
knight d7, I guess, even better.
Oh, the knight is on d7 hanging, so that is better, of course. We win the game on the immediately here.
Yeah, very nice attacking ideas that you can use your pawns even in the attack, not only as a pawn storm, but they can just be very nice little attackers. And yeah, first we will give the bishop for the pawn, create a pin. So yeah, h4, it's a very interesting move. And now how do you approach it from the black side? h5 seems to be a bit risky because those pawns, they prefer to be together. On the other hand, it also feels so scary to let this h pawn roll forward. Maybe just capture.
I really don't like that I have taken on c3. That seems so...
So you're just sitting there being angry at yourself that you took.
Yeah, this feels like I have done very, very anti-positional mistake. But okay, in this moment, maybe we can go and take on e5, just to remove some attacker. And now white has a tough decision to make, because if we do take with the pawn, knight can simply retreat to d7, and we have some queen b6 ideas, knight c5 ideas, maybe provoking something there, and...
And bishop h6.
And bishop h6, I wanted to just to give up an exchange.
Yeah. Now black probably feels also quite fine. There's also some queen b6 was possible to include. I think after bishop h6, maybe that's even better. But also this is playable.
Yeah, maybe also queen b6, exactly. The king has no good square to go to. Very, very uncomfortable position for king. And king on e2, of course, is not very happy blocking the bishop and being completely misplaced. So this will be something to consider. And also, after d takes e5, knight h5 could be an option in these positions, because now we could simply play g6. And... later, start to attack on e5, look to take out the queen, and yeah, and if f4 is ever to happen, then the both bishops would not really be attacking any longer.
So yeah, maybe capture on e5. I wonder if there is something like b4 for black to try to undermine the c3 pawn, d4 pawn, but then I guess knight c6 is something to consider as well, or just the capture also is possible for white, perhaps. And now taking the knight on b4, but this knight is now away from the center. It's pretty awkward. And yeah, those kind of ideas I was considering for black.
Yeah,
Something was played. No,
he took on e5.
he took.
That is a pretty awkward knight on a2 indeed. So that putting knight on a2 should be worth a pawn. And the king is still on f2, let's remember that, and it's not that easy to get it out of there.
Yeah, that was an interesting option, but he took, I think, very practical and normal move, knight takes e5. Now white has to choose what to capture with, and I guess we can come back to this game later. It will still be very exciting, I'm sure. Maybe we could take a look at board number, I think it's board number 17. Yes, between Antal Gergely and Elin Roberts, one of the best female players here in the tournament. I was mentioning she's one of the best junior players in the world. I think actually she might be in trouble now, but let's take a closer look together with Toms. Maybe he will disagree with me, which this time will be welcome. You were given a green light, Toms.
Yeah, the position, it looked rather dangerous, but then again we immediately saw the evaluation bar right in the middle, which is indicating that position should be leveled. Especially the last move is supposedly not great for white. The rook a4, it looks very nice. To get a rook lift, have some ideas of rook h4, exactly going for attack, especially that our bishop is already kind of well positioned for attack. This bishop is almost ready to attack in two different ways, and knight could join the game with knight g5, knight e5, but something is apparently not so great about this move.
So yeah, just seems at the first glance why we mentioned that this looks dangerous. White just has such a nice pressure, such advanced pawns also on the queen side, but the majority of the issues seem to be connected with the king for the black. Yeah, we don't have the best camera for this game. We see Antal Gergely here in the blue t-shirt. He's focused there. Well, he just gotten his rook ready for the attack, so he must be in a fighting mode. Rook could be coming all the way to h4. But yeah, apparently there are no issues, not directly, not from the engine, although we are humans and the players most likely as well, so the issues could be there. But what about just removing the knight?
Yeah, if rook h4 is the threat, then one of the moves could be to get it under control. But we have small issue with the queen, I think.
Yeah, the queen also could be feeling a bit too cozy there, and some stuff like g4 are there.
I don't know if g4 is at all a move here, but the reasoning for it is that the queen has only one square, that is on h3. So when the queen has one square, then it feels kind of natural to try to attack it. And now perhaps something like knight e5, and no, but knight e5 doesn't allow me to get any more attackers in the game. So how could we attack the queen further? Maybe with g5 we keep capturing, now rook h4.
Yeah, we just want to hunt this queen down, maybe. Yeah, maybe g5. So now there is a very direct threat. And what can black do about it? It's actually not so easy. The bar is unmoved, as always. The engine has cold blood, sees everything, but we don't. Maybe e5, but e5 knight can capture this pawn.
Yeah, we can take it.
And also rook h4, queen will be saved, but the h7 pawn is hanging, so no, e5 is a bit strange. But what do you do? It's always so funny when you see the evaluation, but you have no idea. This is why it's, chess is so interesting, because we just see logical moves and attacks, and they just seem very scary for us. What do you do about rook h4? Maybe viewers
I am very, very blind. I'm very blind for the idea how to stop it. It cannot be that we play something like bishop b4, can it?
Apparently. Tom's just tried to think about the most silly move. And it works. Look, the engine, the bar is in the middle. That
Okay,
means
so the idea is here that we cannot simply take like this, because we have queen g4 picking up the bishop at the end of the line. So that would be an exchange up for black. And if we do take here with the bishop, then we have a problem of knight coming to f4 and attacking the queen and checkmating us on g2.
wow, this is a puzzle-like position. Actually, this could be screenshotted before bishop b4 and just asked, what do you do about rook h4 threat?
But the funny thing is that, I don't know, if we play a normal move, can actually you even take on d2, because rook h4 anyways will come.
Yeah, but what is the normal move? What about c3?
Oh, c3 is a very normal move indeed.
Just attacking the bishop, but apparently it's not a problem. Okay, you gotta come up with another silly move, Toms.
Something along the d file could be working. Now the bishop on d3 is not protected, so maybe something like knight f4 somewhere.
Knight f4. For now, the f4 score is covered by the bishop from
Oh,
d2.
and the bishop is gonna retreat to g3 after a check.
So what is it? What is it?
Yeah, this is crazy. This is very, very crazy. So hard to imagine. So this is that playable?
You wanted to show why it doesn't work, yeah?
No, this is not working, yeah, because rook h4 comes. But in this moment,
We have a mystical move that's safe. So knight c3, we took the pawn, but white takes, so white is currently a piece
can
up.
we do this, 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 and now we have a draw.
I was thinking so we could try, but I didn't put it together. So we draw the queen away from the knight. So all the time queen g4 was there, but it doesn't give much with the queen on e2 or queen on d3, because the queen is guarding the knight, so it just one check. And after queen g4, king goes to h1. So we need to still take on b4, but this is a crazy position. Wow.
And
this
we
is
can't
just
avoid
insane.
it because queen is hanging, and if queen does a normal move, there is actually queen f1 coming as well.
Wow, what a position. What a position. So, okay, so now the current position in the game still is after rook a4. And yeah, rook h4 is hanging in the air.
Yeah, but from the distance, I don't think you play knight d5 because it's so hard to see what to do against g4, g5. It seems so logical, just completely cutting off any retreating square from the queen, and so you are looking for some other moves. If you see g4, g5, I don't think you go for it. Even though if you even notice bishop b4, I don't think you really believe from the distance that it's saving the game. Yeah, so, but what else can we do? Because rook h4 is so serious threat.
Wow.
Could we sacrifice an exchange here? I like this.
Apparently.
No, this looks very logical.
You are on fire. You should be playing in the tournament. Rook takes d3, so the big idea is that the bishop on d3 is defending also the b5 pawn. So now black takes the bishop, but also will take the pawn on b5. Queen takes on d3 is quite risky because of bishop takes b5 with an attack on the queen and on both rooks actually. So that probably is not what white can do, taking with the pawn. And now the issues of the queen on h5 are solved. Also the issues of the pawn on h7 are solved. So that actually looks pretty nice.
It looks like a very nice position here for black. The bishop and the pawn for sure is a full compensation for a rook. The d-pawn is a weakness. We have a fantastic outpost for the knight on d5, for a great outpost for the bishop on c6, or also to d5 if the knight ever starts attacking it. We have attacking potential thanks to the two bishops, and yeah, I think this is practically just better for black, since there are no targets that white can be attacking, and black can either feel safe just in any position, even in any endgame. I think we are feeling safe with the light square bishop guarding everything. Even if we just exchange everything and stay with the bishop against the rook, with the bishop on c6, we are 100% feeling safe here. as these pawns are just too weak.
Yeah, this is nice. It's not easy. It's not an easy decision, I think. It also very much depends on your character as a player. Do you feel ease in playing positions with unbalanced material, but also, it's still a bit less of the material that you have after taking on d3. So yeah, this is a very nice option. I think it's also very good in terms of changing the character of the position. Now white is having this aggressive setup ready for the attack on the king, and bishop on d3 is actually one of the key pieces because it attacks the h7 pawn. It also takes the squares away from the queen, so g6, f5 are controlled. So removing this bishop also will very much mess up white's plan, which is always cool because you play against an opponent and you are just taking away the plan of them. It's like taking away toys from someone. So yeah, now you don't have all your fun, and what you're gonna do? A very interesting what is Ellen going to do here. In the meantime, we have a request to take a look at board number 19. So I think we could try to do that since also the camera is already pointing at this board. This is but wait, actually Ellen just played. What did she do? She took on d3.
Oh wow, nice, 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 nice.
That's incredible.
Very nicely recognized the moment, felt it, and yeah, just went for it. Oh wow, rook h4.
Rook h4 anyways, and now queen g6. Oh wait, queen g6, knight e5. Okay, so I guess the fun is starting now for real here. Yeah, queen d5 looks very good because there are no attacks on the queen and the bishop are attacking on d3.
You probably would see rook d4 here, queen a2, and yeah, still feeling the same about the position, that black is doing just good, just practically very, very good. And I think it gets harder to play this with white, especially now. You have rook on d4, and you gotta watch out that it doesn't get stuck there. Every move you have to look for some tactics where you lose an exchange and just stay pawn down.
Yeah, we will come back to this game because that's really exciting. Very, very nice sacrifice. So let's see board number 19. We've seen the players also on this camera feed. So we have international master Julian Song against the best local player, the best player here from Latvia, Grandmaster Nikita Meshkovs. Nikita for sure is doing a bit worse than he would have hoped to be doing after the 5 rounds, but yeah, there are still 4 to go, so it's really important. Also now the difference between players is 227 points exactly, so it is quite a significant difference. Yes, here are the players: Julian with white pieces with the white t-shirt and Nikita with the yellow t-shirt. And yeah, this is also quite a complicated one. Although, again, we have an isolated pawn structure.
Yeah, and all the pieces on the board, but here I think we see a different kind of scenario for isolated pawn, where it is actually a strength, because it gives us a fantastic outpost on c4. It does control more squares in the center, and we have some nice attacking prospects, some nice prospects to be aggressive in this game. What do you think? Do you agree, or do you feel like it is a problem that we have an isolated pawn here?
Maybe the isolated pawn is simply not a decisive factor here in this position, because we always have to remember that there are multiple things in every single position. So of course, isolated pawn, when we see a structure of isolated pawn, usually it will be a very important thing. Then we have positions with a bishop pair, that can be a very strong factor, or we can position around the king, weak squares, and so many things in chess that you have to consider. But then you have to understand, okay, but in this particular position, what is the most important? So maybe here, okay, the d5 pawn is there. It could be a thing, but maybe now more important is the fact that we have to focus on piece activity. We have to focus on the a3 pawn, which is also a potential weakness, or just, it's already attacked. It's probably quite easy to defend it, but actually you do have to decide what to do about it. Queen b3 would be the most natural move, but it's not possible now. The knight is hanging on d2. So yeah, I think it's kind of very big question about the piece play here, and yeah, I don't think black is suffering because of that isolated pawn.
Yeah, the only problem that black has is the bishop. The light squared bishop, which is staring down in the pawns, and it's very, very hard to activate it, because even if we go toward this side, there is no good square for it. So first, white probably has to defend the pawn, so something like rook a3 could be one of the moves, just defending the pawn and freeing queen a little bit. But we also can go for a more aggressive approach with a4, maybe. Maybe we can't, maybe we can, I don't know, because of course there is an issue that the pawn could be hanging sometimes. Now at this moment we can recapture, because queen from d2 is actually defending here.
But there is still knight takes d3 possibility to draw the queen away, and then suddenly at the end is apparently a draw. Is it? Rook b1 ideas also on the board.
Yeah, rook b1 ideas indeed. Also, we might win this pawn, we might exchange here, start checking, and everything becomes very, very simple all of a sudden. So... Oh, but we have also knight... No, we don't have knight b2. There is a bishop on d4. So... Yeah, this is very hard to keep track of. There's so many minor pieces in the center of the board that it's just really, really hard to follow which squares are covered, which squares are not covered, which ideas could be working, which could not be working.
But
here.
look, maybe if knight takes d3, maybe that is the first to start with. Knight takes d3, and if knight takes d3, black could also switch and exchange the bishop on d4 if they want to. Then they don't have... I don't know if they want to, but at some point, yeah, some captures and this pawn on a4 is not already possible to take back.
Yes.
You have to calculate all those captures. There are a lot of captures in this position. Players created a lot of tension on the board.
And rook a1 was played, just simply defending the pawn.
And sometimes it also will help when white pushes a4. It will be better guarded as well.
Yeah, a4 and a5 for black are some of the active, some of the aggressive plans that could be tried to be deployed. I think a5 is actually very, very logical way how to proceed here from the black side as well, because it doesn't allow a4. It like we make sure that we are the first ones to act. We a little bit remove the uselessness of the bishop, because it's not defending at least one of the pawns anymore there. And then maybe we can improve it a little bit by playing bishop to c6, where it's at least not attacked anymore, and just look to step by step take the game a little bit further and further and see what is our opponent doing.
Nikita is funny sitting here by the board, very into it. I was wondering, how do you think, who is happy with the outcome of the opening?
I don't think neither side is particularly happy with an outcome of the opening or something, but I mean, I think generally Nikita is satisfied with black pieces to have very realistic chances to outplay his opponent. But yeah, at the moment I think he has already quite a few draws in a row, so he is just... when that is happening, that when you're not able to win against lower rated opponents for a lot of rounds in a row, it can be just messing with your confidence, and then you're like doubting yourself and you're trying to create those chances, and I think that might be affecting him somehow now, also mentally, that he just really, really wants to win some game finally.
Yeah, that's for sure. When you cannot break through, especially playing against weaker, lower-rated opponents, at least lower-rated, then yeah, it can be frustrating. I think we should go back to board number board number 1. This is the leaderboard, and we seem to have quite a development there. So I think we just have to see, because we might have even a result soon seems like a big trouble for the young Turkish player. Yeah, board 1, Nicolas Teodoro against Kandurak. Um, Two players out of the 5 that have not perfect score, but 4.5 out of 5. We here see on the camera also some game finish. Yeah, we have to take a look. This was the game. Very interesting position. Maybe a draw, because hard to imagine that they could already finish. So we can see in a second. But yeah, let's see board number 1 first.
What happened on board number 1? Oh wow, that is very quick development. Just a few moves since we left it, and it seems to be just over.
This board which we just seen, it seems that the 95, the move we have, the last move we saw, and the draw was agreed, at least according to the live board. So we can take a look if something will still jump there, but yeah, it was a draw. But board number 1 is a huge development, and seems like a huge trouble for black as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that this game is over. There is no game left anymore. We technically see that there are 2 pawns, 4 apiece, but in a middle game where we have a bishop pair, where there is no attacking potential, this is it. There is nothing left to play for. There is no way that this gets even a little bit exciting, I think. So the material advantage is very, very big right now for white.
Can we go back and see how it happened? So we left it when 94 was played. We indeed liked this position very much for white, but how did it go so quickly wrong?
So 94 got played, and now he decided to take on f4 and play queen f6 to attack the pawn on f4 and maybe try to exploit the pin against the bishop on b2. And I guess something went tactically wrong just in this position for him. Something got miscalculated. So knight takes e6, and now... Okay, so his plan must have been to take on b2, I think. And maybe he missed something here. Maybe simple knight c7 he missed, or... Although that's hard to imagine. Maybe here he missed that there is queen d3? No, queen d3 is not the move actually. So could be that here is some funny tactic that is giving a fantastic position for white. I mean, of course we have an option just to take and to play with an extra pawn. But I think this he would have went for if this was the best thing that is possible here, since those pawns are doubled and it's not gonna be that easy to realize this advantage. So what is it here? What do we do? How do we secure the advantage? This is attacked, and this is also in there.
What could it be except queen d3 and rook takes c3? Queen d4 we cannot play for many reasons.
Does this make any sense? We force the queen exchange, and now there is no longer a fork on e2, and we just take an exchange. I guess this is it.
Nice.
This is it. So simply winning an exchange in this manner, and if we go something like knight d4, with an idea that if you take the knight, I still do take back on c3, then perhaps we just run away with the rook. That's it. We are not forced to take, we can just run away with the rook, and the fork is all the time there. It doesn't disappear anywhere. So all we have to make sure is that opponent doesn't take our rook, and then we stay with an extra exchange. So maybe he missed this when he went for the whole queen f6 line in this, but no, he very quickly played it. So, and the opponent took on e6 also in like 1 minute. So that seems unlikely that he managed to realize that he blundered there.
Or maybe he just...
Yeah, so this position is fantastic for white. We have 2 bishops attacking the king. We have a weakness on d4. We have a pressure against the queen and the knight here. So this is the kind of position where we want to have 2 bishops. 2 bishops controlling 2 very powerful, very long diagonals. Open files for all of our major pieces. So
Yeah, and the problem is that the f3 move is coming, and I guess it wasn't even stopped in the game.
yeah, queen f5 was played and f3 came anyways.
Because there is another pin. And also queen couldn't go anywhere because on d file it is gonna be unguarded. So let's say queen is going away, but there is another pin. There is some pin combo here from every single side, and black cannot escape it. Maybe the only move is like queen c8, but that is
But that gives up the pawn on d5, and if you try something like this anyways, it is gonna be completely over. You can always take and just retreat and come queen h7 checkmate.
maybe he didn't see that after rook e1 suddenly the position is so awkward. But yeah, so afterwards, after queen f5, he's just losing a knight for 2 pawns, but they don't matter in this position. White has activity, white has 2 bishops, and most likely Nicolas Teodorou is winning this game, which would mean an incredibly successful double round day for him. He won also in the morning, and afterwards there are no more double rounds left, which also makes it much more relaxing for the players. And yeah, great situation for him after today. Most likely nothing can take this away from him. And we see that Kandurag is also unhappy about this, what's happening on the board.
Yeah, he knows it's over. He knows that he could as well just resign right now, and he's struggling. Basically, does he play still some few moves, or does he resign in this moment? Because yeah, you just know that you have objectively no chance here, and then it's like it's tough. It's tough situation to be in. Especially this early in the round. The round has been so short. They've been playing only for 2 hours, which is extremely short time for the classical time control game.
Yeah, he is still playing. He's playing e3. Well, we know it doesn't help, but he's trying. Let's not forget he's 16 years old, so the fact that he's already in IM 2442, he has been doing incredible in this tournament. But I think he also had very hard games, so they might have left him very tired. So just sometimes happens that you have a weaker game. But yeah, now rook f1, attacking the queen and putting pressure on f7 has been played. What is the only way to proceed here with black queen c7? But yeah, queen c7 has just been played to remove the queen but still guard the f7 pawn. Now it feels like some issues with queen f5, for example, to just threaten some checkmates. G6, then another diagonal will be, yes, queen f5 is on the board.
And we don't even have knight e5 to cover the diagonal because queen is hanging on c7.
G6 on the board, and I think queen f6, and we could see a resignation here. Let's see. Yes, we have it. Very quick resignation. Great game by Nicolas Teodorou. A little bit worse one for the young Turkish player, but let's hope he is going to at least, maybe he will see some positives. If to lose, maybe actually quicker is better. You know, he has a free evening now. He can rest. The round tomorrow is in the afternoon, so he has some time to explore Riga. And yeah, hopefully keep his spirits up, because it's still a good result for him here.
Yeah, so Nicolas Teodorou moves to 5.5 points out of 6, possibly the only leader after this day, but we'll see if somebody manages to join him. So on board 2, which we can also take a look how it's progressing, there have been some developments. Are 2 players that potentially can catch up with him, and we left it in a position which we evaluated in a way that the one who is gonna play it better could win it. So that there are mutual chances that the game is completely undecided. And I think that at this point already the evaluation has changed significantly to the side that only black could be better, and only black could be winning this game at this point.
Wow. So after all, we have it that lower rated opponent is once again pushing. That is so it's interesting to see the ratings. There is a saying in chess that ratings don't play, and it's very important to remember. And I think sometimes following those games and seeing it in games of others, it can give you some confidence for your own games. So with black pieces, Jacob Payekan is lower rated, but he is simply overtaking this game. We thought that white maybe has a slight edge, but no, he's just attacking now the b6 pawn and just wants to take it and claim a position with an extra pawn for nothing, I guess. There is no counter game for white. Nothing yet, at least nothing visible, clearly.
It's very, very surprising right now for me. The last move that was played in this position here was rook to b6, allowing rook takes b6 and allowing this pawn to become even more weak than it was before. So what is he planning? How is he planning to
So now rook
escape here?
b1 would be a normal way to defend the pawn. There is some knight a4 ideas, or queen a2, queen e4, knight e4, knight from f6 to e4, although you have to be a little bit careful about the g7 pawn, because there are some tricks with this queen and the bishop staring there. But I guess in this moment nothing can be done. Knight on d4 is still blocking, and white has to address the hanging queen. Queen b2, now some knight d3 jumping, or again knight a4 is also there to the other side. Those knights from black can actually do much more damage. Meanwhile, for now at least, white's knights on d4 and f3, they're kind of standing, and they don't have those knights, those nice squares that could jump and attack something.
Yeah, so very curious. What is his plan now? Does he want to play something like queen a5 perhaps? Queen a5 and hoping for some way to exchange those pawns and just escape to a draw. Of course, if white manages to take the a pawn, it should be just a draw. And even if you lose the b pawn, the game is not lost. The game is not lost. One pawn is not automatically winning a game, but that is something that you have to take care of. That's something that opponent can use to win the game. So that and that automatically also means that you cannot win the game yourself any longer. So queen a5 could be played. But I'm just wondering, what if you just play very simple queen b7, trying to take on b6, perhaps rook b1 then? Yeah, but we can so many times improve the position with so many pieces, just jump with a knight forward, or knight also coming backwards, attacking the pawns.
Yeah, black's pieces feel much more comfortable here in this position, and Joseph is going lower and lower in time. So it could really be that, we have a serious chance for a resultative game here. And maybe Jacob is going to join Nicolas Teodoru, who just won his game, but maybe not, but he has a realistic chance here for the win.
Yeah, doesn't look good. Doesn't look good for white. Very, very hard to say what he missed. He missed something for sure. He had some sort of a thought how he gets the some game for himself, or some sort of a way to simplify the position, but something got missed, and now he will have to show some very, very resilient defense once again. He showed it in previous round that he can defend. Yeah, that he's tough to beat. He's tough to beat. He doesn't give much to opponents, but
well,
let's see.
He hasn't been beaten here in this tournament yet. So let's see if he will manage to keep his amazing performance and still stay super solid. But I guess we can take a look at board number 3. Maybe after that we can take a short break. But let's still see. This is our last board, where we have one of the leaders after the 5 rounds with 4.5 points with the white pieces. Rokit Krishna, and he is facing a second seed, so quite a tough nut to crack for him. But let's see. Quite an unusual decision was taken the last time we have been looking at this game, an exchange. And yeah, still the position remains with unusual pawn structure as well. So let's just see what could be happening in this one.
Yeah, I think that his idea on simplifying to play it more safe has not really worked out, and Kasper Piron has managed to do everything to prepare for a very dangerous attack against the White's king and against somewhat weakened structure by the king due to the lack of bishop on g2. So now e5 was played with an idea that soon we are gonna see f4, but I think actually we could play f4 maybe immediately. f4 immediately is looking very nice, not allowing your opponent at all to block anything, even with the price of pawn.
Wow.
And
that's a funny move, but that's a move that Kasper could play.
oh, I think he is gonna play. That could be the only reason why he hasn't played the move immediately, because he is obviously not considering to take here with the queen. This is not what he's playing here for. He doesn't want to draw. This would be an attempt to simplify the game, to escape any complications, but he has done everything for the last few moves, just preparing for an attack. Rook is coming on f7, defending on c7. Look, he had a rook on the b8, if you remember, and he went back rook a8. Just to keep pieces on the board and not go any simplifications for white.
Yeah, actually that's funny. Can we go back a couple of moves just to see? So we had this capture on c6. That was really just a couple of moves ago, but the position developed quite a bit. So I know that we also have on the chat a lot of fans of Kasper Piorun. He is also streaming on Twitch, known as GM Solver, and yeah, he is a fantastic solving champion. Just a couple of days ago, getting here his World Championship title, the 6th time he won World Championships in solving. And yeah, so some people follow his games and cheer for him, so this is really nice as well. And even, yeah, especially since he is known for his creative chess, f4 has to be on his radar, but that is such a cool idea.
So yeah, just a recapping on what was happening. So here we were looking at this position for a while, and we got extremely surprised by bishop takes c6 because it gave up the main defender of the king, bishop from g2, and kind of reduced all the possibilities for white to play for a win. So most likely that was an attempt to simplify the game, and here we see that no simplifications will be given. Rook just retreats back to a8, defends one of the pawns that could be potentially attacked. Now queen is attacking the another pawn, and again, just simply defending it with the queen, moving it already somewhat looking towards the queen side, king side in the same time as defending. And now after queen a5, attacking the pawn on the dark square, we see rook f7, just preparing, slowly preparing, and bishop f4 is met by h6, very nice move. Playing against the dark squared bishop, pushing it backwards.
But you know what? It could feel that a couple of last moves from black are actually defensive moves, right? Like seemingly passive. Rook a8, then rook f7 just defending on c7, queen e8 defending on c6. But actually all those moves are very flexible. So they seem to be defending, but at the same time the pieces are getting ready for an attack. And also h6, you could think, oh, this is such a calm move, doing nothing, just making a place for the king. But no, it's preparing g5, and yeah, this is very nice play by GM Solver by Kasper Piorun.
Yeah, now he went for e5, and I guess his opponent didn't feel his threat, so didn't feel the idea that he's planning to just very quickly open up the bishop. Maybe he needed to do something to stop it. Perhaps f4. No, f4 looks too crazy, right? Because
especially
we lose the
with the
e2
bishop
pawn
on d2. You rarely want to put another pawn on the dark squares with already pawn on d4, on c3, and also, yeah, e2 pawn is hanging. But what do you do? It's quite tricky, because, yeah, those pieces, like queen on a5 especially, is very committed to the queen side. So now if the action is going to move to the king side, it's really hard also the queen to come back and help. And this is what we were mentioning also when we saw this exchange of bishop from g2 on c6, that it leaves the king side a bit lonely. Yeah, rook b1.
At least to go for some activity of our own. Perhaps that is
A try.
a try.
now
That is a try, yeah.
Now f4 or capture on d4, both could
So
be.
yeah, so this is an option to take the pawn on e2 or to go for f4. I think f4 here, yeah, it's just pretty. It's so pretty.
And still very quick to put pressure on the light squares. And now if rook b8, let's say,
We have to take it.
but maybe just take on g3 or take on take on g3, take on d4, and if we take on e2, no, we cannot do it because
No,
bishop
we have
is
some
hanging.
problems here. But maybe in this moment we don't need to do anything special anymore, and we can just remove the king. And just prepare for some further attack.
For taking on d4 and going somewhere with the queen so that the bishop wouldn't be hanging with a check. Yeah, that makes some sense. Probably it's still not that easy.
Yeah, this seems like if we want to play for active defense with the white, this is something that we do because
Maybe rook f8. Oh no, but queen takes c7. But
yeah.
if we let's try. Queen c7, then we take on d4, and on e2 probably we can't manage, right? Nah, it's a bit too slow.
Yeah, so some interesting options white had here, and
Yeah, but he decided to take, and also maybe he wasn't focusing on f4, because oftentimes when you take, you focus on the fact that okay, I capture, my opponent captures, and then we start thinking. But black has this crazy cool move, f4, not capturing back. No, just go f4, opening the bishop, and let's see what are the issues really. So what if white takes, let's say on d6?
this a move already? Or that doesn't work. Here I was just gonna go and checkmate. So I guess this works.
For black, yeah. So, and if white...
Rook e1 might be an issue here right now, and the rook manages to get active on e8.
And then queen e5 maybe, and white is also interested in checkmating black's king.
So this would not work. Queen e2 doesn't work for this reason, but perhaps you can just take on d6 and feel comfortable, because the pawn on c3, I think white would be happy if they could just make a move to remove the pawn, since it would open some diagonals at least for the bishop. And now with the pawn on c3, everything is very, very locked down without too many options on how to play it on. So that is one thing. Another thing is, of course, we do have bishop h3 as a move. Very, very logical. Just putting the bishop on the light squares, and rook e1, I assume, could be played automatically. Some lines like this all have to be calculated. Taking most likely doesn't work. That also doesn't work.
Wow, what a headache that players probably have here in this position, because in some way this attack has to work if already playing f4, that could be simply a pawn sacrifice. So if it doesn't work, black could stay with the material down, and black's king is also not super safe. It also, after g5, f5 is open, so it all could backfire and just turn around completely. We see Kacper is still thinking about his decision.
Yeah, and now I keep doing moves and it shows 0, 0, 0, 0. I take, I give up, doesn't matter, it just shows zeros. So yeah, this is a fun position. Very, very fun position potentially.
And f4, that's the only alternative to taking on e5, right? There is nothing really, because we have to open the bishop if we want something from life.
Yeah, we need to include the bishop in the game. We need to get attacking with it, because otherwise we can't really create too much. But also, it's not so easy
After DE.
after DE what to do, because f4 is not the move. We just weaken the king way too much. So how do we make it safe? How do we secure the position? Do we play f3? It doesn't feel very pretty. e4 might be followed anyways. Bishop might be coming to h3 anyways.
Yeah, F3 I would struggle to play such a move. So, but what do you do?
e3 I don't want to play as well, because that is gonna kill my bishop completely.
Yeah, this queen on a5 is so strange, but bringing it to c5 it probably also is too slow, because it still doesn't really do much, and black can probably just go f4.
What about rook b1 now? I think in this moment rook b1 is actually making a lot of sense, because there are none of those lines that we were looking at before with e takes d4 and queen coming to e2. So and if you go on f4 now, we just go rook b8.
Yeah, and the same idea of bringing rook to b8 and yeah, putting pressure on the bishop, and that way also on the black's king. We see Kacper is struggling. He's just trying to calculate everything precisely. It's probably this is what he's considering: either take DE or go f4. Which one to choose? Not queen e5. Hopefully, queen e5 is going to simplify, so it's less exciting for us to follow. More exciting is to keep the queens on the board. Yeah, you see him, he's struggling there. It's just a physical pain.
I think he wants to go for f4. He just wants to go for it.
Yeah. He wants to go, maybe he is still not entirely certain. And sometimes you make a decision already before about what you're going to play. And you know you want to play f4. You basically decided, you're still just fighting with yourself and convincing yourself, okay, come on, I can do it.
And he also knows that he has to make it, because he, after thinking on this move already for quite a while, he has fallen lower on time than his opponent. Because yeah, he actually is already 20 minutes thinking on this move.
Oh yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot, and it's a lot in general. Also, it's in this specific situation basically half of his time. Yeah, it's often mentioned as such a important mark, those 20 minutes, that if you think more than 20 minutes, it's already a mistake, and oftentimes mistakes can happen as well. Not always. Sometimes you just really need this time, but we see that Kacper is just struggling here. It's such a difficult moment. Is he gonna play f4? This is so good. His expressions are so interesting to follow as well. You think he's going to go for f4?
I think he will, yes, I think he'll go for f4. I mean, we saw how unhappy he was with the bishop takes c6 that on this attempt to simplify, and now he has a chance to spice things up again. He wants a game, he wants to win this game, like at least to have chances to win this game, and yeah, he needs f4. He just needs this move f4 to have those chances, and I think he's gonna go for it.
Yeah, I think so too. Just time is also a very important factor. Yesterday he had a really painful loss, which could still be somewhere in the back of his mind. What is he gonna play? Is he going to go for f4? It would be so cool to still see this decision from him. Such an interesting moment. And his opponent, Rocket Krishna, just to remind you, he's one of those players with 4.5, so it's a very important game for the results of the tournament. If Kacper is going to win this game, he's climbing very close, just behind the leaders, maybe only one or two people in front of him, but then he's right there, and tomorrow he's most likely going to have white. 3 games to go. Now he has black, so maybe even 2 games with the white pieces. That's a very good situation. What is he gonna do? Is he gonna go for f4?
I guess we are waiting for that to happen.
We're just waiting, guys. We're just waiting. Kacper, come on. What you gonna do? Yeah, it's such an interesting moment. A lot of interesting games. Probably soon we should switch to them. Now, I think every chess player feels the pain of Kacper Piorun here because we all have been in those situations. We have some a bit maybe more risky decision to make. Maybe we feel it's a good decision, but maybe we are still a little bit, lacking confidence to actually go for it. And yeah, it's a fight with yourself. Sometimes you gotta give yourself kind of like a pep talk, and just talk yourself into going for it. Or sometimes talking yourself out of going for a safe option, because DE feels like a safer option, but also it gives tempo to your opponent. And if you take DE, so you capture the pawn instead of going for a more direct attack, but then your opponent has this move, and probably rook FB1 is a very strong continuation for white to get quickly to the B file, to the B8 square, and from the side also put some pressure on the black's king and the bishop and the queen, and just getting very important time. But the time is running lower. It's 21 minutes, and
Wow, with a queen.
he takes with the queen.
Oh
we
no.
when we just when we just opened this game, I think one of the first thing you mentioned was, for sure he's not gonna take with the queen.
Yes, I am in shock. I am in shock. I didn't expect that. I mean, he certainly had his reasons. He was calculating his alliance. Maybe he couldn't get them under control. Maybe intuitively it felt like rook b8 coming with the queen on e8 is too dangerous, and so he wanted to avoid it. But oh wow, that is surprising. Okay, so one thing why he maybe did it is that he wants to be able to play bishop a6 and attacking those two pawns. But here, even if we take the c4 pawn, our position doesn't get in any way better, or any way we get closer to actually winning this game. And yeah, this should be a relatively easy draw from here on for white to hold. And I think with this we can also go on for a break.
Yeah, we can. We just can maybe say here something happened in the game of Kazakowski.
They finished with a draw. The white player sacrificed everything for a perpetual check, and it finished with a draw.
Okay, and yeah, so you see players friendly chatting, player with the white piece is smiling. It's always nice to see those moments. So even though there is a fight, you see very serious expressions during the game. Afterwards, usually players are pretty friendly, but not always. Sometimes after the game, there is still some disappointment. Maybe Kazakowski is a bit disappointed because we were mentioning he lost the first round, and maybe he was hoping to climb right back to the leaders. Still, this is a draw. Yeah, we will come back for sure to this fight also between Kacper Piorun. Maybe he chose this because he feels it's a kind of a safe position. So many factors influencing the players. So we'll be right back to follow the action after the break. Stay tuned. And yeah, see you in a moment. 6 of the Riga Technical University Open, one of the biggest opens in Europe, for sure in the Northern Europe. Very exciting event. Just in the Open A, in the strongest tournament, we have 19 Grandmasters, 150 title players and participants from 38 different federations. So really, really exciting event. And we are covering now round 6, second round of today. And yeah, here we have the players from the board number 3. Very exciting game. Krishna Rocket against Kacper Piorun. We were just covering it before the break, and now, yeah, has there been any big development, Toms?
A lot of moves have been played, and actually what is interesting, white simply chose to play without a pawn. It was not called for, nothing was happening, and he just played rook b4. getting met by a5, which was the most logical move for sure in most of the positions, and bishop takes c4, and I think that now, not only because of the extra pawn, but simply because of two new targets for the bishop, black have great chances to keep pushing in this game for a long time.
Yeah, but very interesting moment because this endgame which happened here, we were not expecting it to happen at all. And then during the break, we were laughing that sometimes we think, okay, this move is for sure not going to happen. And the more certain we are that it's not going to happen, the bigger chance that it's actually going to be played on the board. But yeah, actually pretty decent chances for Grandmaster Kacper Piorun. The time is also now even, so it could be quite an interesting endgame. And I feel like we have had so many endgames with different color bishops here.
Yeah, different colored bishops and rooks together. Yeah, this has been a very common theme in this event so far, and some have been also like very exciting. Some have been less exciting, but here I think there are chances. There are good chances, and Kasper Piorin is one of the players who actually won the endgame with the rooks and different colored bishops. So maybe he's feeling confident about his ability to grind out position like this.
Yeah, he had this, and a very important difference that when the rooks are still there on the board, the position is more dynamic. So even what Kacper did a couple of rounds back, he actually sacrificed his rook for the bishop, and then he created a very strong pass pawn, which was not possible to stop. So that is the difference. The rooks can be sacrificed, the rooks can control some important files, they can attack some important pawns, because yeah, with different color bishops we have this situation of one bishop can do nothing on half of the board, and both of them are kind of playing a different game, and because of that oftentimes we just have blockades and we have a lot of draws. But here still rooks are on the board, and Kacper is fighting for a win here. With chances, it's not going to be easy, but if he's ready and if he's patient, he might just do that. So maybe let's take a look on board number 2. This is another leaderboard, and we had Joseph Girel against Jacob Paikan, and we thought that black actually has a really good chances for the win.
Yeah, and what has happened on this board too? Yeah, he did take the pawn. He did take the b pawn on b6, and now he is simply looking how to turn it into a point. But somehow during this process, then bishop got exchanged for a knight, and I think that should help. That should help a lot for white chances actually to save this game, because the bishop in the game on two flanks is a very important resource.
Alright, here you see the stage, top 10 or 12 boards play on this very nice stage in the tournament. We also have screens with the games. So you see in the corner there, it's a screen with the games. So players, when they're walking around the playing hall, they can look at the games on the screen as well. And here is the actual board from the board number 2, and the players. And yeah, you see this a6 pawn. This is the only pawn on the queen side, and black is a pawn up here. But yeah, white is fighting for a draw. Maybe even there isn't that big of an advantage here, as Tom said. There is this bishop you see in the far corner by the battle, kind of together, and white has serious chances in this game. This is Jacob Paikan.
And now, of course, there are a lot of tactics also in connection to the knight hanging on c5. So if you're playing here with white pieces now, this is the moment when you calculate all sorts of different move orders, how you could try to take the knight, and do you care about it or no. So first of all, we have a simple option of taking here immediately on c5, which objectively I think should be also equal. Maybe king on h2 so that there would be no checks, but we get a lot of play by putting the rook under the under here. Okay, no, now a5 pawn is actually rather quick, possibly. So, but this kind of position is you might not get the pawn back. You can attack some things, but you might not get it back. You might get it back, but you might not. So it's like, do I go for this kind of endgame? It's a hard decision. But then again, you are having some options of some discovered attacks, some intermediate moves. Even something like knight f5 you're calculating, and then taking on f6, and does that help you somehow to defend this position? You know, for example, taking the piece a move later. Actually, the engine was laughing about my move for some reason, very much. I guess we have some jump with the knight in this position. Possible, yes, somewhere knight attacking the rook and taking the bishop a move later. But all those ideas you're looking at, you're calculating, you're thinking which promises the best chances to draw. Also, knight c6 is a move to seriously consider here, because this endgame right here with the doubled pawns should be very, very drawn. But again, we are committing to a rook endgame without a pawn that we know that should be a draw, but in the same time you can go wrong, and then it feels horrible to have made such a decision which you didn't actually need to make.
Yeah, and simplifying a lot, so getting rid of the pieces and just going for it, which is very, very difficult defense.
And he went for it. He just
but
went.
he's-
Just
but with
went
the knights.
just for the taking on c5.
Yeah, so still knights are there.
So we are gonna see queen takes c5 now, rook takes c5, rook b1, and I guess king h2 is the more precise move for some reason.
Yeah, but king h2 instead of king f2.
But that is not easy. You want to bring the king to the center. It's like the natural instinct in an endgame to bring the king to the center, and it doesn't feel like one check with a rook is enough of a reason not to do that. But maybe the point a little bit is that in the lines of rook a2, we have to bring the king back anyways, because king g3 could be met by some moves like knight h5. So that's why we prefer to have it immediately on h2.
Or like g5 and yeah, then knight h5. King is actually on h2. He for some reason understood that. So confident going there. So yeah, maybe there is something way more obvious. But yeah, he immediately goes there. We have very quick including of moves also of check. Now king h7 is going to be answered.
And now maybe he's just gonna go for the f7 pawn. He sees how to take the f7 pawn, and because of that he just calculated that he takes the f7 pawn, he needs the king on h2, because there would be some line where he doesn't get the pawn back immediately if the king is on f2. And hopefully he's gonna show it quickly on the board. Rook c7. Okay, rook c7.
Attacking the f7 pawn.
So
and it's probably around equal despite the extra pawn for black.
if knight d5 is to be played, we can take here, and after knight takes e3, we can take on e6, and that is already very, very comfortable for white, because the g7 pawn is about to drop as well.
But was there a clear reason why king g6 doesn't work?
Yeah, and queen g6, not knight c6, apparently.
But it can also be probably knight c6, that is a threat of knight e5, which will attack the king, and the f7 pawn. Because yeah, he is reaching for the king, he's going king g6, that's a very natural move, which most players, at least in my understanding of chess, most players would play this move. Now knight c6 is another very human reaction to just give a check on e5 and attack on f7. What else?
e4 is actually strategically a very nice move, because now this knight from f6 has zero useful moves, and then without the knight being able to join the game or attack anything, we might be ready simply to play rook a7 and start attacking the pawns in all sorts of ways. Also still with the same idea of knight c6, knight e5 in the air.
Yeah, that is so crazy in chess that you just go for the position where you have an extra pawn, endgame of extra pawn. Come on, you should be playing for the win, and suddenly it's just apparently a draw, and you have nothing, despite opponent also seemingly not having much, and you just have the a pawn which can go forward. Your rook is normally active, but yeah, the engine says it's absolutely nothing, and it also seems that Joseph understands that there should really be not much for black here.
Yeah, he seems to be defending all these kind of positions very, very well, having a great feeling for all those important aspects in the position, even just the subtle no king f2 or king h2. Yeah, just he calculated, he went just for it, and that's it, and he feels confident.
Yeah, very impressive actually. I don't remember last time I've seen a player on around this level. Of course, it's much higher level than mine, but still, like, he's very solid. The understanding that he is showing in all those positions here is just very impressive.
In the meantime, we can update on another result among the group with 4 out of 5 that Jonas Baum made a draw against Chongzheng Zheng. So they both are falling a little bit behind the leader group now, each having 3 draws. But we are seeing loads and loads of draws, and as I already mentioned before, every win in this tournament, in this stage, is super, super important because most of the games are finishing in a draw. As the players are playing very high level, they are very evenly matched up. So, and also a lot of them, they just don't feel like taking too big risks. They just want to play it solid and leave the risks either for the last rounds or simply just to secure that okay, they are for sure in high places without a chance that they stay in very, very low places.
Yeah, because we have to remember today was also a double round day, and sometimes chess players basically approach it as let's just survive the double round day, and just after it, if you don't lose, it's still fine, and you will get some rest, prepare well, and do everything that makes you comfortable, but with enough time before the single round days. And yeah, all the remaining days are gonna be with a single round. E4 meanwhile is on the board. This great move that Tom's mentioned, it is played. So once again, a great understanding by Joseph Aguirre. Really well done. That is for me very nice to watch because yeah, he's a much better player than me, and just to follow his games, I feel like I'm getting a little lecture in strategical chess, and then just not being afraid of some things that naturally a player on my level and on also lower levels, you kind of focus on them too much. You think that they are important ones, and he is relaxed about them and showing that actually something else matters. And yeah, very nice move. Maybe it's gonna be a draw here, most likely result. Maybe we could go back to the game of Antel Gergely and Elin Roberts. Is that okay, or you had some other game?
Yes, let's take a look at that one. Can you remind me which board was
So
that?
board 17, board number 17. We had this nice exchange sacrifice by Elin. The position is still, with the exchange down for black, but I think it's a very exciting material count here because black has 2 bishops versus rook and a knight, which I remember some of my coaches were telling me that it's basically an equal material, especially when the 2 bishops are feeling comfortable in this particular position.
Yeah, so the position is still, I think, very nice for black. Very pleasant to play for from the black side. I am not so certain that I like, in general, the decision to exchange the knight because our knight was very, very powerful, while the white's dark square bishop was more like a defensive piece rather than an attacking piece. But it is also understandable because it kind of secures this material imbalance in a way that now we are not taking any risks. We are reducing any chances for some tactics from the white side, and we are just trying to claim our strategical advantage here. So, yeah, which is also not a bad thing, especially considering that it's a double round. So, what do you think? Do you still prefer black here?
Yeah, I think so. I like bishops. So here, I think they feel comfortable. Now this last move queen f4. I'm just wondering, can white go rook f3 or it's
Yeah, rook f3
because that puts pressure on the queen and on the f7 pawn, so that forces some things, right?
forces this position here. We have to give up another pawn, and we have to be feeling. Whenever we go for a position where opponent has two pawns for an exchange, we have to be very, very confident that first of all we're not worse, and second of all, yeah, like in this position, this is admitting I am not gonna play for a win here anymore with white pieces because there is just no way that bishop and two pawns will lose to rook. Like this is very comfortable position to play from the black side. We are just playing it for two results, and that's it. Yeah, so, but I don't think there's much better things to do, because nothing, otherwise our pieces are not really working. A5 pawn is hanging, that is a big deal, big issue, so maybe it's almost forced to go for that endgame.
Yeah, and Antal Gergali is much lower on the clock, 8 minutes for him, and if he keeps queens on the board and those bishops and more pieces, position is more complicated, but that also makes it more complicated for him to make decisions, and with lower time obviously it is more challenging. Very interesting, very interesting. What's gonna happen here? Rook f3 is still not such an easy decision because you also, as you said, you are giving up in a at least big chunk of your chances to play for a win. Yeah, there we have the players. We have Aline now visible as well. As we were mentioning already, she is still a junior player, so she is a very young talent, one of the biggest talents in the world. It's really nice to hear, to see her here.
Yeah, we can also see that it is a sunny evening in Riga. Somewhere through the window, despite the playing hall being relatively close, still the sun is finding its way in.
Yeah, it is really nice. Just a couple of days before the tournament, there was a huge storm in Latvia. So when actually Grandmaster Kacper Piorun arrived to Riga, there was a very big storm, and he was surprised about it. But before the tournament started, everything cleared up, and so yeah, players can enjoy also their time between the rounds. That's really nice, especially when you go for some tournament, and yeah, you can enjoy not only the chess part but everything around as well.
Yeah, so, but I think that, yeah, rook f3 probably will be played, as there are not many alternatives, because we have to give up the d3 pawn, I guess, in every scenario. Otherwise, if we do lose the a5 pawn, that means just that, well, there are going to be two passed pawns that we will have to deal with. D pawn is still going to remain weakness, so that could mean trouble. That could mean very, very big trouble. So rook f3 and then queen e5 might not be even forced. Maybe there's some options where we can give up on f7. Can we go queen h4? That seems too awkward, right?
The idea is that if white took...
So the idea is we are looking at the h2 pawn. So if white is to take with a knight, then that's a checkmate immediately. You know what? If white is to take with a rook, then we would be maybe ready to take on d6. No, we could be taking on d3, because here white could escape. White could escape to equal material.
Bishop is hanging also.
So we could include some move like bishop takes d3, and then looking to take in the next move. But that is crazy. That is looking very, very crazy, and there might be some better moves also for white in this position. some intermediate moves, and especially that now if he take ever, then he takes, and again it's attacking on b5, so it
Yeah,
doesn't feel natural.
but he's already down to 4 minutes, so he really needs to make a decision soon. And I wonder also after rook f3, Aline, seeing he's playing queen b2.
So he's
Queen
trying to
b2.
keep the game complicated, keeping it alive, being ready to take with a rook, looking at some rook g3 ideas, but none of this should work when you have two bishops. Two bishops should be able to control all of it.
Wow, and yeah, the bar doesn't like it. For me, it also feels just very risky because here it doesn't have time and dynamics should be in favor of black. But yeah, there are all those geometrical ideas. Now bishop on b5 is hanging. Bishop a5 could take, so going with the rule of when you have a piece attacked, or when your opponent is attacking you, instead of defending, look for a counterattack. So now we are attacking the rook on e1, and if rook a1 attacking the bishops, then there's maybe bishop c7, queen b4. Yeah, after exchange, rook b1, I guess black has a counter attack or just defending with the a pawn. That already is the same endgame we have just seen, but without the pawn on a5.
Yeah, and this should be just winning for black. Those two bishops are just so very powerful. The two passed pawns are so very powerful. The rook on h3 is so weak. So
Bishop a5 and just queen b4.
just going for an endgame.
And so let's say he sees it and he just says, I want to keep queens on the board, and he will go rook maybe rook b1, just attacking the bishop and just later bringing rook g3, but that cannot be dangerous. Rook g3 to attack on g7, but black could even play f6, I guess.
Perhaps just queen d2. Just get the queens off the board.
Just
no attack anymore, and convert a strategically amazing endgame.
just finding a different square where we can exchange the queens. The b4 was guarded. Now
We also had, I guess, queen d4. A more easy approach.
okay, so this is a very important moment because now Aline can actually take on a5 and overtake the game against a strong grandmaster. What other moves are there after queen b2? Because can she just play a6 and defend?
Yeah, that is also a totally normal option, but he might be planning to go rook f3 here. At least to for some complications here on the board, to maybe try to provoke bishop takes e5, or playing some position like this. Again, this requires some bigger decision making from the white side, yet nah. Everything looks very nice. Now this is dropping, this is dropping, this is still under attack. We cannot take on f7 because we just lose tactically. If we take with a knight on f7, maybe even bishop c6, just hitting the rook, the piece that is defending the knight. And again, black is just winning. Those bishops are just too strong.
Something was played. Was it bishop a6? Yes, bishop a6. That is not as aggressive because it's not attacking. Not taking the pawn. Also, now bishop has to stand there a little bit. Maybe it's more passive on a6 than it was on b5. So I think maybe a6 anyways was a better way. But okay, we have bishop a6 on the board. That is a safe move, and that hits the ball back to the opponent. And he has 4 minutes. He has to figure something out in this position, which is also not super easy.
Yeah, but this is potentially already something that could be used by white, because now it's not so clear that the positions with the rook against the bishop are great for black, because we wanted to have our bishop on c6 in those kind of scenarios. And now, especially imagining the position that these things get exchanged, if rook reaches c7, it's already black that could be in trouble because bishop will be completely out of the game and unable to join it. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's a little bit on the side. So sometimes it feels very tempting to play such a move because it feels very secure. But in most of the cases, you like your pieces to be able to be as flexible as possible. So bishop on b5 just controls two diagonals, and on a6 it just controls one. So that is why it's a bit less active now. And piece activity, as we know, is super important. Now queen c3 played, attacking the bishop. Now it also is defending the pawn on a5, so bishop cannot simply capture.
Yeah, I think this is now a very wide open game. But still, probably it is still that white is the one who has to be more careful, because we always can escape. We should be feeling relatively safe. The d3 pawn is constantly under attack, but for now white is just playing on some active threats, on some practical tricks that black needs to solve, and then the position again could enter the strategically better kind of situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask you, because I think for me the board 15, the pairings on the live board doesn't match, because I was curious to see how is one of the biggest let's say surprises of the tournament doing. Hongsen Chan from China, rated only 2145. He's on 4 points, and we were mentioning he is already gaining 130 points, but in the pairing he's supposed to be facing Paulius Pultinevicius on board 15, but in the here on the boards I guess it's not correct, right?
The boards 11 and 15 I think are just mixed up the players with white pieces. So Ki Chen is playing on board 11 with white pieces against Roy Wagman and already won his game, and Hong Sen Chen is on board 15 playing against Paulius Pultinevicius. So that I think is his game, simply the names have been confused there.
Okay, but so let's maybe not check it in case of the if the board is also so maybe we should take a look at the game on board number 10. International Master Day Shahil against Grandmaster Paul Velten. I just feel like we haven't covered too much Grandmaster Paul Velten. And it's always a shame. So we have one of the Grandmasters. He's also doing very well in the tournament, and so we can now see his position. I think he is maybe even close to winning here. He seems to be pushing in an interesting endgame, and since we have knight versus bishop, it's one of the most common material imbalances that we have in chess, and it's always good and instructive to see from both sides when is the bishop better than the knight and when is the knight actually better than the bishop. So let's take a look, board number 10. So I guess this is Day Shahil from India, I would guess. Yeah. And
yeah, it seems to be very, very comfortable position for black. White is already doing moves back and forth because of not having too many ideas, and yeah, player with black pieces simply is improving his king. Knight is dominating the game, and the rook is dominating the knight and the bishop, so everything is dominating everything in white's position here. So yeah, this actually could finish very, very, very quickly, and Paul could be one of the players catching, just running behind leaders with 5 points out of 6.
exactly, yeah, he's very dangerous there for the leaders. So this is why we should take a look at his game. He seems to be having simply winning position, despite the fact that he has a knight and a bishop is on white side, but yeah, this is this very clear example of how knight dominates the bishop. So maybe we can see the boards as well, just to have it clearly shown what the position actually is. And yeah, see this amazing knight. This is what knights love. This is an outpost where this knight just feels like a how good does the knight feel, Toms?
It just feels really, really great, yes. There are no words to describe it.
He's
And
vacationing in Hawaii or something like this, feeling great. Rook on a2 is also just a perfect piece. And look at the pieces for white. The only moves that both pieces can do, I mean, only bishop can move, because if rook moves, the bishop drops. So rook has to be babysitting the bishop on b2. But the bishop can only move to c1 or a1. Which is far from ideal. And yeah, also black's king is ready to just come to g4, f3. And e3 actually is on the board. That is,
just going for the decisive blow immediately.
yeah, that is also just a winning move.
Yeah, could expect that some of the ideas could be just to bring the king around and then to go for these kind of ideas, but he decides to do it immediately. King is getting either going for the g3 pawn or going to e4. And what's interesting about this position in general, I think the evaluation would be better for white as it is now if we would remove the d4 pawn. Since then the bishop would actually have some moves, rook would have some open file, we would have some chances for some counter game ideas, some maybe theoretical possibilities to draw the game. But with the pawn on d4, this bishop is very, very sad.
Yeah, that's true. With the bishops, that's often the case, and that's why material is not the most important thing. It's always the most important thing, the pieces' actual potential and what they can do. And oftentimes you see such pawn just going forward, and both sides actually, like, there is a waiting, and one side is blocking it, and a side, like in this case white, would be just hoping, okay, will the knight move, then I can go d5, and it's just such a relief. But yeah, here e3 is on the board, the d4 pawn is also on the board. Now black can just go forward, not like this, I guess. That's not enough. Maybe king e4 has to be played.
Yeah,
Wait.
so this is not working out because we actually do manage to free our piece, and that here we get to play, I think, no, not d5 even. I thought that we managed to get some freedom for the bishop with d5, but there is something even more clever that could be done.
Maybe simply king d2, and the problem is that black is has some difficulties to progress.
Yeah, we could also manage to give a check.
King can come to c2, defend the bishop in some cases.
So the trick in this position, what he's planning is, in case we do take on e3, he is gonna be looking to improve the king.
I think he just wants to go king e4. The problem is that king e2 now is a very big difference because knight c3 is possible. So this knight on d5 is crucial. That is a fork and a pin. So we have a mix of the ideas, and yeah, king could come to f2 perhaps.
But we still lose the piece because we attack the rook and there is no way to defend the bishop any longer.
So king can never come to the second rank. So maybe also this is the idea of e3, that now after this move, king on f1 is also stuck on the first rank.
So king is gonna take this pawn and move over to this pawn, and the white's king will just have to remain in the first rank.
Yeah, or king e3 and then king d3 and king c2, just going for those pieces. Yeah, now e3 played, and Shahil has only 2 minutes.
He can try to play f3, maybe, but then we
maybe
can
e2 and
no, e2 we can hide. We can actually use this pawn to hide. Only just king f2. We don't take it, because if we take it, knight c3 would come once again. But in this moment, we don't want knight c3 because that could lead to a rather drawish rook endgame. And this is maybe the scenario where there is a wall, just unbreakable wall, which we don't want to create. So now we would need to look for something else, like, what about g5? Trying to break the wall. So if white is to take, we would just take and look to play h4.
And that for some reason is also not winning.
So the position is not as easy as it looked initially.
Maybe I wanted to suggest bishop c1, but I guess that's not the move.
Some drawing trick there is for white. Some very, very clever way. Maybe we just wait for h4, then we exchange, and then we find some sacrifice of a piece to stay with a rook and a knight, a rook against rook and a knight. But, well, curious.
But he has to go f3. He has got to go f3 to cover the squares.
But h4 wins, though.
But he took. He took, and now probably will see king e4 immediately on the board, unless king g4 probably. That just makes it a bit too complicated because e4 pawn could e pawn could roll to e4. So yeah, probably king e4 now. Yes, it was played, right? King somewhere went.
King
yeah.
e4 was played, and yeah. So this is game over.
We also have very interesting position in the game between Julian Lamard against Hassan Celik. Maybe we can see that here it seems to be quite clear that that black is winning. So maybe you can take a look at board number 9. So this was board number 10, and we can see board number 9. Yeah, international master Lamard. He, I think, is quite young. Okay, depends, I guess, who is asking. He's not a junior player, anyways. But he is rated 2510, and he could be hoping for his GM norm here also, because he already has the rating for a Grandmaster. You need to cross 2500, but he's still an IM, so maybe he doesn't have enough norms, and that is a great, great tournament for norms, and it's a very interesting endgame. And his opponent actually is a 16-year-old, so his opponent is the young one.
So here we have black being piece up, but the pieces are not able to join the game. So the rook and the bishop is dominating all three pieces that black has, and simply white is looking to promote the pawn. And it could be that there is no stopping it. So this is board 9.
Live board. If we could also see for board 9, if it's still there, it should still be there, right? Yes. So just a sec. Yeah, very funny position, actually. Yeah, white doesn't have a knight. If you see, white has no knight here, but has very active pieces, and the g pawn wants to turn into a queen.
And how do you even try to fight here with black? You cannot get knight g5. There is no point to jump anywhere with the knight. Everything is blocked off. Even the e4 pawn, even the double d pawns, they play a role. Each of the pawns are important. And it's also funny that if you look at the pawn structure on the queen side for white, there is just doubled b pawns, which again, it's no problem because we are just promoting the g pawn, and that's it.
Yeah, that's true. That is, yeah, that's why I saw this position. I thought, okay, let's take a look at it. Curious, how did it happen? Maybe we have a second just to see. Was it already a very long time that white is playing without a piece? No, just...
No, they actually had supposedly an equal looking position. Like, I think black was feeling that he's completely safe because white's pawn structure is very, very horrible.
And bishop on f3 is so bad as well, so you might assume that it should be just a good endgame.
And in this moment, wow, he goes for a very, very clever sacrifice, simply to create some practical chances for himself, just assuming that the pawn is more important than a piece in this position. And yeah, a complicated position arises and mistake happens.
Wow, so that was still fine for black apparently, but...
He probably had to go to take the pawn, because as we saw it was important, there's pawn on e4, and this would give the knight f5 squared an ability to give up the knight for the pawn and to fight for equality.
Wow. But this is not easy as well to do because you see suddenly, again, this very important thing about changing character of the position. White is going, from the end game, suddenly going for the pawn, giving up a full piece in the end game. And you see this passed pawn, so it might just feel a bit crazy just to go for another pawn, wasting two moves. Yeah, it's just very difficult because you kind of want to focus on the G pawn, but surprisingly, taking E pawn helps you stop the G pawn.
Yeah, now the big thing is we cannot stop it because we have no pieces that can actually interact with the G pawn. Only the rook is there, but it's not enough. Rook is just not enough to defend it. Now again it's attacked, so we give a check and now we advance. And after bishop c7, rook h5 was played and it does look like white is just winning.
Wow.
Maybe you can look for some endgames where we give up the rook for the pawn, try to get one more pawn on the queen side and try to save it without an exchange. This is also not out of the question that there could be some ideas that is still having some drawing possibilities.
I think that's another case where we'll see the importance of the pawn on e4 because I think white will have access to the e6 pawn and just there will be a passed pawn on the e file. So even if black takes on e5, they will most likely lose the e6 pawn and then white will still have this e4 passed pawn that will be very dangerous and could decide the game.
You mean on the sacrifices on e5?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
No, if black takes somehow on g6 then manages to take on e5, but
oh, okay.
or just takes on b3, but still white has pawns on e file, which will probably turn into a passed pawn, at least one of them. We can try to fashion something. So how could the variation go?
Well, we don't want to take on g6 immediately because we will take in the last moment.
Yeah, so knight d2 now, let's say.
Say knight d2. And we can't play rook g5 because that would lead to no, not taking. That would lead to knight. What would it lead to? I thought that we managed actually to bring the bishop over, but I didn't notice that the knight is hanging on d2 here immediately. So, but here apparently there is some other trick.
What about bishop takes e5, rook g3, bishop f6? No. Because then I thought we have knight e4, knight g3 will manage to stop the g pawn mystically.
Oh, here we have a nice move, knight e4, and if we do take it now, after g7 we have the classical knight f5, so very important square.
Oh,
knight
wow.
f5 we win, and if when we queen we have a fork, giving back the knight for the pawn.
And after king g6?
We just take it.
Ah, we just take it now.
So this is, oh well, okay, so that's why rook g5 would not be working here, so I play g7.
But actually for something like this, black could still hope, right? Because it is easy to miss as white when you think your pawn is just queening.
So something like this could happen, for example, very realistic line, and then maybe c5 to give a square for the king on c6 and looking to take still one more pawn over there, but that's not what happened at all. So bishop b6 was played instead, g7 was played, and bishop d4. So he's going for the similar idea, just trying to take the b2 pawn, not the e4 pawn, but I think this is a little bit more dangerous approach, more dangerous plan, because the double d pawns are the ones that we are gonna try to promote. We're gonna try to push the king away from d7, we're gonna try to take the e6 pawn, and then as a result try to promote the pawn, and it's kind of probably important that we have another supporter there for the squares around.
Yeah, but very nice sacrifice. It just shows how careful and aware you still have to be in endgames also, that your opponent can suddenly sacrifice a piece just for a passed pawn. That is very fascinating to see, actually. And yeah, and just always you have to be so focused and ready for the position to change drastically.
Yeah, very creative approach. Indeed, and And so Lamar is gonna join the group probably with 5 out of 6.
And I think we should go back to the leaderboards, the two main, the most critical boards that we still have are board 2 and 3, on which the actual leaders are still playing. So with 4.5 points, let's take a look at Joseph Girel and Jakub Pajeken on board 2. Although, okay, we have board 3, we can take a look at that first as well. Yeah, here it seems that Polish Grandmaster is actually taking over the game. Also, situation on the clock, I think it's extremely promising for Aldo. No, he also is low on time, so they're both low on time. Although those 2 minutes more could sometimes be important, but it seems that Kacper Piorun is managing one more time to win an endgame with different color bishops. Now he got this pawn to e2, which is an extremely dangerous pawn, because now if rook comes to f1, it's a game over, and maybe rook f5 is just a way to ask this question. Rook on d8 is hanging, so I'm not sure if it's possible right away. Maybe even, but
I'm not sure if it's necessary. This seems to be very easy way as well, without going into any complications, because bishop d2 is just not possible, because the rook f5 comes and rook f1 is unstoppable.
And yeah, and the pawn is queening, the rook on a1 is still there. How come that the rook on a1 is there?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened here, but everything seems to be working fantastically for black here. We could give a check, force the king somewhere away, and I mean there should be some tactic to win it, but I could go even as far as just to take on a2. Just take the pawn on a2 using the fact that we can promote a1, bring this guy back and just go with the other one to a2.
Or now we are threatening rook d1. And after rook d1 we have bishop b3, which is not necessary, but
So
it's there.
He did it, he took on d2. I think that is the easier way how to approach this position. There might have been some spectacular way with some sacrifices how to win it, but you don't want to go for it in time trouble if you don't need to, if you know that this is winning.
So now what move will Kacper choose?
He could also go for rook b2, that is also certainly fantastically looking, and then take on a2.
Yeah, this seems to be collapsing for white in so many different ways. Passed pawn on e2 is the key here. It is the key. But of course you still have to be careful till the very end in those types of positions. Rook d5 check has been played. Now the problem is that king cannot go back to e1 because rook f5 is winning, so king c2 is on the board. Now this move, bishop a2, could be played. It's very nice because a2 pawn is not only about the pawn, it's actually often bishop b3 is a very useful little move to have because it controls the d1 square, and then we can go rook d1 and queen our pawn or win the rook. So let's see, this is interesting. What is he gonna play?
Oh, but it's amazing how he managed, it's so quickly happened. It looked like the end game is gonna be so comfortable for white, but white was not careful for one moment, gave up the pawn, and all of a sudden everything was very, very tough. And one more example, different colored bishops. It's not a draw automatically. It's all about the side which has initiative, and he goes for bishop a2.
Bishop a2 on the board, so white can now take the bishop, of course, but e1 is coming, so pawn is queening. This is not a good business for white, so, well, they need to try to find some other transaction, but there seems to be just a bad situation after every single move. What is still some try?
This is already third extra pawn for black.
Bishop d2, maybe, to
Or
just
bishop g3.
control the... I feel like bishop d2 is safer because rook d1 is also stopped. Bishop g3.
Yeah, but here I think just bishop c4
Yeah, and the problem is that a5 pawn is even defended. Bishop g3 instead on the board, so your move. But now isn't this bishop... rook d1, is it possible?
Rook d1, we can take rook takes a2, because g1, e1 square
Yeah.
is covered. That would be a big, terrible blunder. But I think just bishop c4 is looking easy. Very, very easy. Very comfortable.
And 3 pawns. 3 pawns have to be enough with the rooks. With the bishops only on the board, maybe it's a draw. But we have still rooks and bishop c4 played. Nice move. Only 1 minute on the clock for Kacper Pioron, but it shouldn't matter at all. Rook a4 is now played, attacking the bishop. It's a good try, and also he is speeding up, so Krishna Rohit is speeding up a bit, trying to push on time.
Is bishop b5 now a possibility? Of course we cannot take on a5, and just to basically force the a4 on the board. If we do go somewhere like rook f4, just king g6, and a4 in the next move coming, and c4 should never really be a concern, should it? Maybe slightly.
Maybe it's some concern. King d3 that attacks the pawn on e2, and also the bishop is hanging. For now, e1 is defended, so black cannot queen. So maybe it's getting tricky. Bishop d3 was played.
So much more safe approach. Just put check and put the bishop on defended square. No fancy tactics needed.
And also king has to go away from the pawn because king d2 immediately loses due to bishop b5.
That is a very, very important point. And we cannot go also king c1 because it will be met by bishop b5 and rook coming to d1.
But king c1 is on the board.
Okay, so bishop b5, he maybe plans to play rook e4.
So that still is covering the promotion squares after rook d1. We cannot queen because it's covered by the bishop and the rook.
And then perhaps a4, c4.
Or bring the king closer as well.
Yeah, we could also just play it very human and just bring the king. No, but that's not so good because now c4 is actually winning the e2 pawn. Bishop f5, it just goes to the other side.
But 58 seconds on the clock.
So now this is a threat because we have no rook e4.
This is very nice because I think this was White's hope with rook a4 to bring the rook over. And actually, what can you do now? How do you stop rook d1?
Yeah, rook f4 is gonna be just met by king g6.
Okay, so rook d4 played.
Yeah, and this endgame is certainly winning. But the question is, do you want to go for it?
But maybe you can go rook b5 because that also is threatening rook b1. So again, going to the first rank. But he takes. Kacper takes.
Yeah, this one is just definitely winning because the pawns are too advanced and too far apart. So there is no diagonal from where bishop can control both of the squares. Like there are no two dark squares in the same diagonal that are stopping the pawns from promotion. So then it automatically probably means that, yeah, there's no defense.
Yeah, if the pawn was on a6, so bishop could maybe come to e1, and that would be this case of being on the same diagonal, and then you can move around. Here, bishop can come, of course, to b4, and will cover both pawns, but that is a bishop that cannot move, and so all the zugzwang or king from black side coming in will be game over. So yeah, most likely Kacper is managing to win this endgame. We were not expecting to see the endgame at all. When he went for it, we were shocked, but he proves that it was the right decision for him, and very nice technique.
Just securing all the pawns, making sure that there are no chances for white. Now white is going to take on c7, we're going to see a4, bishop is going to come to d6, king is going to go to e6 with a tempo, and very, very quickly everything should collapse.
So maybe we can go to board number 2, Joseph Girel against Jakob Payekan, they I think will make a draw. At least I expect so. Maybe I'm wrong, so let's see actually. Let's see what is happening there. There is a rook endgame with an extra pawn still. Black has this extra pawn that has been there for a while. And is it a draw? Are they gonna repeat, or is there still some theoretical chance for black?
So black is trying certainly, like there has been advancements all the time. So I have to catch up with the position also on my end here a little bit.
So king was pushed to h7. Yeah. For now, there are checks. You see rook is checking the king. And either there is a repetition. It already was, let me see if it was exactly this position. No, king was on h7. So now king is on f7. And the question is for black, is he repeating or is he going forward? And he is going forward with his king. Now check is still coming. King is going to e7, so you see a bit closer, and he is going to try to come to the rook, and then later to support the pawn on a3.
Yeah, this is actually very, very horrible situation because it was a drawn endgame, and Joseph didn't manage the tension.
But yeah, what happened? I saw when it was still seemingly a draw, but now the problem is he cannot.
Here he played g5 move, and it was still just a draw. I think he just takes it. He just takes it, king takes it, we just put rook g7, and it is just a draw. There is no way forward. We can't get out with a king, and we can be just going back and forth.
So just to show that if king goes to g5, but then we can already... oh, here we can checkmate. I actually didn't see it. I thought we can just move the rook, and once the king comes to g6, we go back.
And if something like rook a1, we could even... No, king g5 is... We lose to a2.
Yeah, you have to keep the king.
So we can go king g2.
And after a2, we just keep the king on h2 and g2.
Yeah, and then we...
But it's still tricky.
Just
king
move
g5
around the rook.
now?
With a2 or without?
Yeah, here with a2. Here, I guess. a2 is just blocking our rook in. So king f4. And...
I guess rook a6, just attacking.
And if we try to bring the king closer to the a pawn, there is this usual trick of checks that never end. And here there is no progress on the king side. And on the queen side, if the king is going to support the pawn, then rook will be just giving checks. Okay.
So the only chance would have been to not advance the pawn to a2.
And do that with pawn on a3.
Yeah, do that with the pawn on a3, but I think we are just... No, that actually wins. Wow, that actually wins in some way.
So it wasn't so easy. So well done to Payekan.
Oh, with a pawn on a3 we can still play king g3 because there is a checkmate threat in one.
So let's just show why with pawn on a2 king cannot go to g3. Maybe. So after instead of king g6, pawn on a2 or something like this, yeah? a2, and if rook...
You mean now?
Yeah, in general.
Yeah, so the winning idea is that we want to check, and in the next move promote with a rook defending the promotion square.
Yeah, so that's why king would have to stand on g2 or h2, that there is no check. But here, if there is a check, then rook can escape with a tempo. And yeah, the problem is that black is just bringing the king closer, yeah, and white is not managing with their own counter game. So now we have this position after king d7.
I actually was wondering, wasn't this the way to hold this position as well? Just waiting it out on the third
And
rank?
I guess the same thing, king e8.
And then we are not... No, then we can take the pawn, right?
So here he's in time. But I guess everything has to hold on one tempo. So here he can take, but look, here he's not in time.
So here we play rook a1, and king comes to g2 or something, and then probably we can bring the king over. No, not yet. So we have to go a2. And in this very position... Oh, and in this very position we don't have king h2 moves, because there might be rook f1. No, that's not enough. That is not enough. I thought we get 2 extra pawns, but
It's clear we don't understand what is happening here.
everything is
And
too fast moving. And yeah, this is...
very complicated endgame. Very, very, very complicated after all. And yeah, so well done for Payegan for creating this trouble. Now, let's see what is happening in the game, because we have development white decides to take the pawn on f6. So this is what was black risking with the bringing the king closer to the rook. He left the pawns without the defense, and so he just lost the pawn. But yeah, now black manages.
So here was king g3, g5, and there were some checks. King went to e6, to e7, king went to h3.
We see Kasper Piar analyzing with his opponent. So yeah, this game already finished, and Kasper must have won. But here it's a very, very big development. Black gives up the pawn, and now apparently it is not enough for white to win. This rook b1, and rook is coming next to the pawn.
Yeah, nice attempt, and the pawn on f6 was not important at all, because those two are completely locking out the f pawn. So now we actually managed to set up the... It's almost like we didn't give up a pawn at all, because f6 pawn was not relevant in this position, and now we have this winning setup with the rook on b2 and with a pawn on a2, and all we have to do is just bring the king over, and then we just come with the king all the way to through the b file, c2, b1, and just promote. And that is it. And in the meantime, white can't even activate the king. The king is in a complete cage, just can go back and forth, g3, h3, and no moment we can take on h6, because the we are just gonna promote. Wow. Yeah, this is the risk. Always the risk of going for some draw rook endgames without a pawn that are theoretically a draw, but you're without a pawn, and one unprecise move, one bad decision, and all of a sudden the opponent can get chances, winning chances.
Wow, that is just crazy, because that means that Joseph Girel, who was maybe even the most seemingly solid player in the tournament, he is going to lose his game. And just to mention incredible time management, look, Jacob Payegan has still 10 minutes, so he really pushed this game, and incredible. Now down to 11, 12, 10 seconds. White is going for f4, but that is not going to save. Wow, but what a subtle endgame, and what a great technique. I will have to actually try to analyze this game with my students. I think I have to understand it myself first, but then I think we'll analyze it with my students, because it's a great win. And also the fact that we had a small difference of pawn being on g5 or on g7. There it seemingly was okay for white. Here it's lost for white. So very, very nice victory is incoming for Jacob. And wow, and that also sets him on a great run for a Grandmaster norm. It's not only about the results of the tournament, but it's also Grandmaster norm for many players. They are extremely valuable, maybe even more valuable than victories in the tournaments.
Yeah, very nice. He's very nicely setting up himself for the rest of the tournament. Tomorrow he is likely playing with white pieces against the top seed in the tournament, Teodoro Nicolas. So that's gonna be a big challenge to determine the how the rest of the tournament could go. But okay, first he needs to still solve with which pawn to take on f4. I think both of the options should be winning, and because we are gonna have two passed pawns, and still the rook cannot leave the a file, and king is also gonna have 0 moves whatsoever. But what do you think? Do you take with the g or e here, Anna?
I would take with the e pawn. I think the taking with the g pawn is somehow scary a bit. For some reason, it feels like Well, because after taking the g pawn, white can create a passed pawn on the side. So somehow it feels like passed pawn in the center is not too problematic. Let's take with the e pawn and see if the it's a stupid move, a little bit, but I guess still not bad enough.
Yeah, I would probably choose to. I think both are winning, but I would probably choose to take here with the g pawn from the perspective that now white already has a passed pawn, so it's not that we can completely freely, not thinking about anything, just run around with a king.
He took with the g pawn.
And the passed pawn on the potential passed pawn on the h file comes with a price, and the price is us having two connected passed pawns as well. So that meaning actually 3 passed pawns in total, and the rook is always going to be comfortably from h2 stopping it if we do need it.
So let's see, king f3 is played. Do you bring your king closer now as black? King c7?
Yeah, I would just go king c... No, I would actually play rook h2 right now. I don't need the rook on b2. Rook h2 seems like a very safe move.
Just to, in case white ever goes g5, we already have the rook there guarding the h-pawn as well. He's still thinking...
Because now the g3 square is covered, so the king cannot approach it in any way, so this seems like a kind of insurance that nothing will happen, and next two moves will be king c7, king b7.
And I think he went for it. We still don't have the move, but it was very long movement. And it's also move 60, so players just took new score sheets because yeah, they need new ones. What is Joseph gonna do? I'm sure he desperately would like to save this game. It's so important also for his standings, but probably it's impossible. What can you do? I mean, actually, you don't have moves. You have to keep the rook on the a file because the pawn has to be guarded. But if you move the rook away, then king can already go even to c6 and just coming closer. And this will be game over very soon.
Maybe you gotta try the g5, king g4 anyways. Like, those are the only moves that you can actually make.
And he is going for it with 13 seconds on the clock now. Black has to take, I guess. Nothing else.
And now king g4. I guess there's no other move simply. Although h6... Yeah, with h6 we can even play this very, very comfortable endgame with two connected passers, which is also just totally winning. We can just rook h3 is probably the most easy one, making white choose.
h6 is on the board now. Yeah, black could take because white cannot capture the rook since the, again, a pawn is too close to the promotion square, and the position is winning for black. Probably he doesn't have to take as well, but it seems to be the most natural way to continue.
Yeah, because we will have to take it at some point, so we could do it just as well immediately.
Unless you bring your king one step closer, and then you have the same position with the king closer. But yeah, it doesn't matter too much. He's looking somewhere. Okay, let's still wait a bit. We are soon going to be finishing the broadcast. Just to remind you, dear viewers, that tomorrow there is a single round. It's starting at 3 p.m. local time. The broadcast will start at 4:15. So we will see you tomorrow. Yeah, rook h6 is on the board. Probably they will fight it out for a couple of more moves. Black is 2 pawns up. Now white can take this passed pawn on a2, but yeah, black still has 2 connected passed pawns on g5 and f4, and it's a winning position. So once again, despite the black color, despite the smaller rating, it all doesn't matter. You just go there and you fight it out, and we see that Jakub Pajekan 24-16, probably on the starting list we can just see He's 36 starting rank, so there are 35 players with higher rating than him in the tournament. But he's just going and fighting each game incredibly, and he's going to be one of the leaders after 6 rounds with 5.5 points, most likely, unless a miracle happens.
Yeah, he should comfortably convert this, and so there are gonna be 2 people sharing the first place, and then the group following them with half a point less is gonna be actually rather big because there were quite a lot of resultative games played in the between the players who were trying to catch up with the leaders. So just to update, Kasper Puren won his game, so he's one of the players with 5 out of 6. Thomas Laurušas won a game, so he is also moving to 5 out of 6. Then we most likely Guillermo Lamard is gonna win his game as well with white pieces and join the
Sorry, just we have resignation. Resignation after g4. White cannot take the pawn despite the pawn hanging. If white takes it, it's a lost pawn endgame. And yeah, if white goes passive, there is no hopes as well. So yeah, this is just a confirmation that indeed we have 2 leaders. And Jakub Pajekan will play tomorrow with Nicolas Teodorou. And yeah, because they are the only players with 5.5 points out of 6, so we have a big battle tomorrow on board 1.
Yeah, exactly, and a lot of people are, yeah, as is, gonna be looking to catch up with the leaders, and so as I mentioned, those players are already there. So Paul Welton won his game, then Ki Chen won his game. He's also gonna join them, and then Rat Hanvel also is trailing by half a point. And there is an absolutely wild game still going on, still by the biggest surprise of the tournament, the Chinese player who was ranked 148 in the beginning of an event, fighting a crazy battle against Paulius Pultenevicius. So, but most likely he's not gonna win his game since he is defending queen down. So he's not gonna join the group of leaders there. So the previously mentioned players are all gonna get paired together and will be looking to catch up with the 2 guys who will be fighting it out on the board 1.
Exactly. As you see, the playing hall is already almost empty, and we are also going to say bye for today. So yeah, make sure to tune in tomorrow for the 7th round. Only 3 rounds remaining, and they will decide everything. And it's only going to be more and more tense on the board. So hope to see you in those last rounds over the weekend. And thank you for watching today.
Yeah, thank you for watching, and see you tomorrow.